It's a dangerous business to help people out of slavery. But so what? I mean, we have to do this. This is a moral obligation, ethical obligation, as a technical possibility, and a lot of fun. So the risks of it are real and substantial and have been forever, right? Especially in the last 30, 40 years or so. Countless builders have gotten into serious trouble or even been kidnapped or killed. And yeah, that's a hard fact of reality that we have to deal with. But I'm way more scared of the alternative of on not working on this code and seeing us lose the grip on freedom that we have, rather than increasing it and making it flourish. So for me, it's really a no-brainer. Like this, they're so angry about this technology precisely because it works real damn good, and that's why we have to double down.
What is up, guys? Welcome back to Bitcoin Audible. I am Guy Swan, the guy who has read more about Bitcoin than anybody else you know. This is a marathon of an episode, and we got into so much stuff. I always love having Max on. We always have a fantastic conversation. We actually did this exact thing like 2 years ago or 3 years ago. If you've been listening to the show for a while, you may have heard me mention it. But we had a 3-hour marathon conversation that was just so great. And we got into so much stuff. And then the file was corrupted and it had not recorded or saved. I was using Zencaster at the time and we lost it. It just died in the ether of the internet. So we got to do it again and we actually saved the recording. It is here today and it is available. A quick shout out to our amazing sponsor, the Human Rights Foundation. They put on the Oslo Freedom Forum as a conference from June 1st to 3rd. Tickets are on sale and you can get the link right down in the show notes, as well as their newsletter, the Financial Freedom Report. If you want to know what's going on around the world, how the tyranny and the controls are slowly creeping in, and importantly, the stories about how people are fighting back, where they are winning, where they are losing, and what tools we have at our disposal for this battle. The Financial Freedom Report by the HRF is the resource on this. The link is right down in the description of this podcast. We get into so many things. The thing I think that surprised me that came up in conversation that I hadn't registered was that vibe coding has cured my addiction for social media. And we really talk about the elements as to why that might be. It was a little bit all off the cuff because I hadn't even considered the idea until we were really getting into it. But there were some really interesting elements to that and why that might be the case in relation to his Code Liberation article and the idea that code is no longer going to be static, like applications will no longer be static. And then we talk about like some of the amazing tools that we have with Nostr, with white noise and the Marmot protocol that they're building, and on how to do decentralized encrypted private messaging and all of the tools that we now have available for us. We do a little bit of a deep dive on CoinJoin, exactly how it works, just because I had a couple people ask me, they actually hadn't sat down and had a good, how does this even work kind of conversation. And in the context of Wasabi, how do we know that the coordinator can't steal the funds and that sort of thing? And then we also talk about the OFAC list and censorship, and then some things that I hadn't intended to get into, but we just explored some really fun ideas on like how we could actually more fundamentally solve some of the problems like the op return and data issue in the Bitcoin system, and maybe even in a more radical way. And then lots on cypherpunk philosophy, how we actually win, and why the strategy for going forward may be quiet, persistent resistance, and simply building the tools so that we can ourselves exit. And when we gain our own freedom, and then we can gain our friends' freedom, our family's freedom, suddenly you begin piece by piece to change the world. And all you need is that remnant. We do have the tools to basically build a better world. And now we also have the tools to build it faster. I think you guys are going to like this episode. This was a fantastic chat. This is chat 160, The Quiet Global Resistance with Max Hillebrand. Max, hell yeah, welcome to Bitcoin Audible. This is official start of our show, and I want to share with everybody. The last time we got together, I believe we went for 3 hours, right?
Yeah, that's the minimum nowadays, right?
That's the minimum, and which I don't know. I don't know if you have 3 hours today. I don't know if I don't know if I can pull that
I
off.
have more.
I got more.
It's usually the host that gives up earlier.
Yeah. And we lost it. We lost the whole conversation. You remember that? It didn't record properly.
Yeah.
That was such a
those are the
sad
best.
moment. That was such a sad moment. And because of that, I've probably built up in my head how great, I remember it being a great conversation, but I bet it's twice as great in my head since we lost it.
Exactly. Yes.
It's the
The
golden
forgotten
egg that
treasure.
we'll never get back. Shit.
Yeah.
Welcome.
But it's
welcome,
like we
dude.
used to have conversations just one-on-one and nobody cared.
Yep.
Just now, weirdly, we can broadcast it to everyone. And then if that fails, we're like, oh no, what are we going to do now? It turns out we just had a damn good conversation among us. That's totally fine.
Yeah. Dude, welcome to the show, man.
Yeah,
Good to
thanks,
have you
man.
back.
Been loving it.
Yeah. So you've been working on a lot of stuff. And I want to go ahead and hit just to kick this off, because Johnny had a couple of questions for me. We're gonna be talking about privacy. Definitely gonna be talking about AI. Definitely gonna be talking about a number of various things we'll be building. I know you're building a couple things. You just mentioned white noise just before we officially started here, and Noster, because there's tons of really cool Noster applications. But to start off with, so for anybody who doesn't know, you are you've been building and working with Wasabi for a very long time. And I have really loved Wasabi. In fact, being on a Bitcoin standard, I literally don't do anything with pay. Like I pay a lot of people, and then receive everything in Bitcoin too. And I do not, everything goes through Wasabi, because I don't want my balances. I don't want exchanges or services that I'm using. I don't want there to be an obvious, I'm going to go check the mempool and see where this batch came from, where this transaction came from. And, I don't use it I'm not super crazy hardcore about it. I just want a simple break the heuristic, and I find it invaluable. And we are in a very interesting place, especially with the samurai guys, that people are, governments and regulators are treating this like this is illegal activity. Like this should be something that needs to be squashed for literally the most obvious and basic privacy that I could provide myself while doing business. And I'm just curious, before we kind of get into specifics, talk about your position in Wasabi and your history with working on it. And also kind of the philosophy, and how do you see, are you nervous with working with Wasabi and on privacy software? How do you think about it these days?
I think that we really have a lot of available good tools that help to protect us. Right? That's ultimately what privacy is about. You want to protect yourself. You want to prevent that others can steal from you. And being private is extremely powerful. It's very cheap to use and quite expensive to attack. And then the question is just, can we further extend our toolkit here? Right? Can we keep building that out, making it cheaper, easier to use, faster, and so on? And I think we've seen insane engineering improvements over the last 5 years, 10 years. And that doesn't really seem to stop. So sure, there are people who would prefer you don't protect yourself against the thief. Specifically, the thief likes that, turns out. But that's where the cyberpunks come in, right? We're punks. Like we write the code, we ship it. And sure, it's a dangerous business to help people out of slavery, but so what? I mean, we have to do this. This is a moral obligation, ethical obligation, as a technical possibility, and a lot of fun. So the risks of it are real and substantial and have been forever, right? And especially in the last 30, 40 years or so. Countless builders have gotten into serious trouble or even been kidnapped or killed. And yeah, that's a hard fact of reality that we have to deal with. But I'm way more scared of the alternative on not working on this code and seeing us lose the grip on freedom that we have, rather than increasing it and making it flourish. So for me, it's really a no-brainer. Like this, they're so angry about this technology precisely because it works real damn good. And that's why we have to double down.
Yeah. That's a good point. The reason they're attacking it is because it works. And I would love to see a future where, and what's funny with some of the compression tools and the way things are designed in Bitcoin, there's a very real potential, especially when fees get really, really high, that kind of a coin join, that privacy tools are actually more efficient economically. They're actually better data compression on the actual chain itself, which is really, really exciting. I've been waiting to kind of see that incentive kind of play itself out. But what's funny is that we've been no fees on the chain. So for a long time, fees have been incredibly low. I did not think we would get to 2026 and I'd still be paying 1 sat per VByte every once in a while.
Less than that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, but block space efficiency is super important because privacy is about hiding in the crowd, right? So the larger the crowd, the more people use it, the more people look indistinguishable from each other, the higher the quantifiable privacy effects that we get. And if it costs too much, then we cannot scale as much. And this was one of our core realizations of Wasabi from the very beginning, that you could always make private blockchain transactions by simply making a network of transactions where you send money to yourself in different amounts with different inputs, different change amounts, etc., and you randomize a whole bunch of them. You can get a huge amount of ambiguity while doing that. Not a huge amount, a reasonably private amount of doing that you have plausible deniability of, no, I just got that money from someone, many hops before that. But then that's still extremely block space inefficient, right? You need to have multiple transactions, which have also that aspect of whenever on the transactions you create an output, that means you later have to spend it, right? So a coin always has two costs, the creation and the spending. And so if you could imagine like that you have to make 10 transactions to yourself before you can make a private payment, then you need to create and destroy 10 coins, right? That's crazy inefficient. And so the idea of a coin join is, how can we compact this so that instead of everyone doing 10 transactions by themselves, we make one transaction together, right? Where we increase the size of the crowd by introducing other people into the crowd rather than making fake transactions, or transactions to yourself, I should say. And with this, we decrease the size of block space that you need to use in order to be able to use Bitcoin privately. And then ever since the first launch of Wasabi, we further iterated on improving this substantially. So Wasabi 1.1 allowed you to create multiple denominations in the same round. And that was already a big improvement. But then especially with Wabi Sabi, that was another like 50x of block space efficiency. And coming to a point where it's so cheap block space wise to use a coin join that we just turned it on by default. That you receive money into your wallet, it automatically coin joins in the background, even if the UI is closed. And the next time you open it, you have 100% privacy and you can just make your payments. And also then what even further improves this is if you start making a payment inside the coin join directly. And then this is extremely powerful, especially if you're making many payouts to your employees, right? Because then you can batch 5 payments and put all of these 5 payments outputs in the same coin join transaction. And none of them know, especially what your inputs are, and which is what you actually care about. But neither do they know the other outputs that other employees of the company have received at that time. They're both extremely important privacy aspects. And you get that with a single transaction, right? So now you can get a reasonably minimum privacy amount just by taking a coin that you received from someone else, putting it on the input side of the transaction, and on the output side, register the 5 payments outputs that you want to do, and your change output gets broken down into 3 additional UTXOs, for example. That's not fantastic level privacy. You can definitely get better, but it's almost no additional cost. In fact, it's much cheaper than paying these 5 people with independent non-batched transactions. So payments in CoinJoin, which you currently can do on the Wasabi command line interface,
Oh, that's crazy. I hadn't thought
is
about that.
extremely powerful.
Yeah. That's crazy. I just realized I haven't updated my thing in a while. You said that the coin joins are actually happening by default now, because I still have a play button based on like privacy progress. Am I actually on an old version?
No, this was mainly what we introduced with Wasabi 2.0. So with 1.0, it was that you actually had to go to the CoinJoin tab
Okay.
and select the coins that you want to CoinJoin, and then click the play button.
Okay.
And that, was bad UX ultimately, because people don't even know that they should go to the CoinJoin tab and start doing something like, what is even a CoinJoin in the first place? Right? So that was a major, maybe the largest privacy improvements to Wasabi ever, was just to make the CoinJoin the default. Volumes went up like crazy because everyone just had sane defaults that would protect you by default without having to click any button.
Dude, honestly, I've been, as somebody who's a bit of a wallet nerd, like I've been using Nunchuck as my kind of like main wallet for multi-sig and stuff. But the combination of basically going, like, right now it's just coin join in progress, negative 5 minutes, like it just sit there, it just runs. And but the process of basically just going between like a wallet to Wasabi and then to my business to like pay out, because I basically have like my incoming wallet and then goes to Wasabi and then my outgoing wallet, so that payments from sponsors or people that I'm partner with or whatever just aren't connected to people that I'm paying. And it's like such a simple, it's such a simple setup, and like there's so little
And it works.
friction in using both of the like this whole setup every day. Like I make a Bitcoin transaction every day, Lightning or no. I usually make a handful of Lightning payments. But in fact I have 2 today that I need to make that I haven't made. But it's pretty wild.
No, really, and like that's ultimately what kind of made me realize that my mission of Wasabi was over, is that we have fixed the blockchain privacy problem. Like it's completely addressed. It's not perfect yet. We can make it still better, but it's solved to a sufficient degree that I'm happy with. And that now it's just a question of deploying it and keeping using it and getting it into more wallets. But the fundamental engineering challenge is done. And so that was for me mission accomplished. And let's move on to another big lofty goal that needs fixing.
What's your new big lofty goal?
Fixing the DMs, basically.
The DMs. Okay.
Yeah. We need to make sure that we have secure, reliable, censorship resistant, anonymous communications online, regardless of the adversary, basically. And this is something that sounds crazy, and for a long time was deemed to be impossible. Like even the guys on Signal were working that we will probably never see a fully decentralized encrypted group messaging scheme, because it's just so hard. Like it's this kind of Zuko triangle of what you can achieve. It's right in the middle. And the cool thing is all of the tools where we can hack it together in an actually production ready experience are there now. So first super important building block is Noster, right? Like that idea of users declaring their own identity by signing in a message with a key that they generated is incredibly powerful. It shifts the entire architecture on its head, and we can build many more beautiful things with that architecture. So that's one. And then the other realization is that Nostr events are atomic and as good as they are on first seeing, right? You don't need to know any additional context. You just receive an event, you see it signed from the pub key, and you can display it to the user without any trusted third party. And specifically, you don't have to trust the middleman in transferring that data because it is signed. Right? So the relay cannot just change information. The only thing that the relay can do is delete your event and not serve it anymore. But if that's the issue, and other than that, the relay is not trusted, just duplicate. Okay? Put the same event on 10, 100, 1,000 relays, some that your friends run, companies run, that you run on your phone. And then all of a sudden you have a sufficiently decentralized system with actually quite simple building blocks. And then we just need to get an encryption scheme on there that works efficiently for a large amount of people. And that's where the messaging layer security protocol comes in, MLS. It's an IETF standard and designed from the ground up for a encrypted group communication system, which is contrary to Signal, because Signal for group messages, what it actually does, it takes one message and encrypts it first to Alice and uploads that to the server, then encrypts it to Bob, uploads that to the server, and then to Charlie, uploading to the server, right? So you need to encrypt and upload the same message 3 times for a group chat of 3 people to work. And that naturally doesn't scale. And so MLS is one of the few protocols that is from the ground up designed for groups at the core. And so it switches around to, we just create a key and we encrypt the message once to that key. And then we only have to upload one ciphertext. And anyone can download that and decrypt it with the same key. And so we drastically decrease the amount of data that has to be transferred.
So MLS doesn't work on like a big, like multiple key signature type scheme. It's literally we start a group chat and we we share an encrypted key. I share the chat key with you, like just like you just said, is like you encrypt it to this person, you encrypt it to this person, you encrypt it to this person, and you duplicate over and over again. Well, you do that with just the group chat key. Then everybody has the private key to that group chat. And then after that, all of the messages can be encrypted one time because everybody has a private key to decrypt. Is that how that works?
Exactly.
Super simple. I don't know why that's not obvious. Again,
I mean, it's hard to do. Like MLS is by far the most complicated scheme I've encountered so far.
Sure.
Maybe some ZK knowledge stuff gets close to it, but MLS is crazy complex. And the main issue is,
okay, what makes MLS complex in its implementation though? Because the key architecture is very simple in that you create a key for the group and then you have to share it, like, so implementation, obviously there's a lot of like, okay, how do you do this safely? But what is it about? Where's the complication come in? Like what are the pieces that you interact with that you're like, oh Jesus, this is a pain or difficult?
I mean, maybe the simplest way to do an encrypted group message is someone creates a private key. He gives it on paper or whatever to a bunch of people. Now we all know the same private key and we just encrypt messages to that, right? But that has a couple problems, specifically of we use the same key for the entire conversation. And we would like that each message is encrypted with a new and different key. Sure. So that if any one of our keys get leaked, the past and future message history is not compromised.
Yep.
And so that is usually done with a double ratchet, which is basically a state machine, a small program that runs on your phone and that deterministically creates a new key such that the other person knows the public key of that as well. And so every time you make a signal message, it actually ratchets forward and creates a new key for the next message that you cannot get your hands on if you've just compromised that side of things, right?
Okay.
So that's the first difficult thing. We don't just have to agree on one key. We have to agree on a new key for every message, basically. So that adds complexity. And then the other thing is, how do you add and remove someone to the group? Right? In our simple example, adding someone to the group is easy. I just give you the private key. But then what prevents you from adding someone else that I actually don't want to be in there?
Yeah.
And so we don't have authentication of who joined the group in the first place. And then the other even more difficult part is, how do we kick someone out? And how do we get rid of someone? And the naive way of doing this is, if we have a group of 100 people and we want to kick out Alice, then we create a new private key and we encrypt it to the 99 pub keys of the other people.
Yeah.
And now everyone but Alice has that key. But here you run into the bottleneck that if you now have a group of 1,000 people and you kick someone out, you need to do a key rotation with 99 or 999 people. And that's where another scaling.
The onus is literally on the people who are behaving rather than the person who's misbehaving. Like the
Exactly.
incentive is backwards for the cost of actually making it, for creating a solution.
Yeah. And so MLS addresses that specific point with binary trees. Everything in cyberspace grows on trees. Yeah. And here it's the same. You probably don't have to go into the details of it, but basically, instead of encrypting your new key to all of the members, you create a tree where the members are the leaves. And the nodes have some additional private public key pairs.
Okay.
And now if we want to kick out one person, we have to only encrypt the new key to the path up to the root that the person whom we're kicking out doesn't need to know.
Oh,
so that's all locked
so
in.
it still works for everybody else except for the person being kicked out, and you don't have to change the key. Wow, that's clever.
And so this scaling means that if you have like a group of 1 million people and you want to kick someone out, you only need to sign like 30 messages.
Shit.
Yeah, it's a really, really cool protocol.
Yeah.
Like I really like it a lot. And the cool thing is, so what these MLS guys did, basically, if you want to break it down, is that they've developed a consensus algorithm how people can know the same private key with that key rotation and the ability to efficiently add or remove people from that group. Right? So it's a key derivation function. I mean, not really derivation, but like a key exchange protocol. And they leave two things out of the scope for this spec entirely. And it turns out that Noster, and maybe Pair as well, is a perfect fit for that. Right? Because the first one is what they call the authentication service, which is basically the who says the identity of those keys. And they've built it in a way that they're like, well, just Google will do that, right? You have a Google account, and the Google account will say that, yes, this email address corresponds to this private public key pair. Turns out we don't need trusted third parties anymore. We can just self-declare with our Noster private key that, hey, this is the key package that I'm using. Right? It's kind of like a PGP subkey where your master key, your Noster key, assigns the public key of some secondary key, and therefore giving the trust over. Right? So I know now for sure that this is Guy's key package because he used his shitposting key to sign off on. And then the second important aspect is message delivery. And so MLS completely leaves out of scope how do you actually get the encrypted message from A to B. And again, they imagined the Google server will take care of most of this. But what we can do is to just use Noster, or in this case, PairDrive, or Pair, as the message transport layer of the encrypted payload that MLS gives you. And that together is basically the Marmot protocol, right? It's putting Noster as the authentication service and the message delivery service for an MLS-based group.
How does MLS deal with the creation of new keys, like for each new message and transmitting that? And like, what's the kind of like latency and scaling issues of that when you're talking about a group with 1,000 people, 10,000 people? Like how do you actually pull that off?
Yeah. So in MLS, there are 3 types of messages that you can send.
Okay.
And the first is a regular application message. It's the GM or hello world or whatever you want to send. Right? The second is called a proposal message, which is, hey, I would like to make changes to the group, like adding a member, removing a member, changing the name of the group, whatever. And then the third one is the commit, where we actually move forward the official state machine of yes, we have removed that person. And so one commit can refer to multiple proposals, basically, right? So you can kick out 5 people, 10 people at the same time, which again makes things much more efficient. And then whenever we have this commit message is when a key rotation event happens.
Okay.
And so it doesn't automatically happen with every GM that you write,
Okay.
because that would again be a scalability
Yeah.
downside.
Yeah.
You can configure that if you want. It just means more encrypting
Just
and
why
uploading and
though?
downloading.
Yeah.
And it's not really that necessary.
You obviously have a consistent string of people in the group or whatever. So it's like if everybody's there and everybody was part of the conversation, why are you swapping keys? Like it really does matter, unless of course you're trying to do like a every day it wipes, and like you're trying to make sure that there's no quote unquote history. But other than that, though, yeah, your commits would specifically be based on like whether you needed to change keys for who's there and who's not. No, that makes sense. Mm,
Yeah. So the more paranoid you are, the more frequently you should do your commit messages. But especially if you have a large group and the security is not so dramatic, then you will get better efficiency by doing that less often. And the cool thing is, it's totally up to you. Like every group can behave differently here on when the admins decide to make a commit.
So you said Marmot. This is what you've been building. How?
Yeah, so the Marmot is the protocol,
Okay,
right? And
Marmot
then
is the
White Noise
protocol.
is the
White
application
noise
that
is the
builds the
application.
protocol.
Okay.
Yeah.
And aside from the fact that you can use Noster, and White Noise specifically is using Noster for delivery, this would also just kind of be completely agnostic to um to basically how it is being delivered, as I understand it, right?
Yes, exactly. So what we get at the end of the whole MLS thing is basically an encrypted Nostr event that just has a random group ID as the identifier, and then a load of ciphertext, and that's signed by an ephemeral key. And so very simple Nostr event. And then the standard default way of getting that to your friends is to put it on the relay with a WebSocket, and then clients connect to that and download the event from that WebSocket.
Mhm.
But there is, for example, already a NIT for using Bluetooth Low Energy to transmit Nostr events. Right, so you could absolutely, via Bluetooth, send an encrypted Marmot event, or you could somehow put it on the pair stack and use the DHT for the transfer, and that should all work. Here, of course, the thing is that the sender and receiver have to agree on the communication protocol,
Sure.
right? And
Sure.
and so that's why we would probably
And that's where you
add
stick it
like
in a QR code.
alternative.
Yeah.
Exactly. But there's like version handshakes and all of this per group.
Mhm.
So you could have a group that only works via Bluetooth, for example. Not yet implemented, but totally doable.
Dude, that's awesome. What's the
Yeah.
relative like in kind of like in the wild, what's the relative latency and like how does this behave when you're actually using it?
To be honest, it's basically instant. Like it's a crazy complicated scheme, but it's just math on large numbers.
Yeah.
Computer do that super quick, so you don't feel at all the cost of encryption here or the state machine. We haven't really done super crazy performance tests,
Mhm.
but we'll be fine. And then there's basic engineering to improve it. And then the question is just your internet, right? But encrypted messages are super tiny. Like we're
Yeah.
talking about a couple, not even kilobytes, probably, right? So that's fine. And yeah, then the question of where is your relay located? And again, you could use for a group a specific relay that's close to where all the members of the group are. The relay could be on your local host. And if you just want to write your wife, absolutely. Like localhost will make sure that you get it on the same Wi-Fi network, and then it's just wicked fast. Yeah.
Oh, shit, that's crazy. Um, that has me thinking very differently about our because basically right now the pair stack will let you create like we're using our current design uses Nostr keys as well, and it's actually very similar to how you have established that this is the room key kind of thing. Is that we just use key attestation, like you just have your main key signed that this is my client, this is my laptop, this is my Linux machine, so that they have their own keys that you don't have to think about or worry about or even back up if you don't want to. It doesn't really matter. Like your main key has the ability that can stay offline has the ability to add or remove devices or add or remove rooms. Or you could do that sub thing, is that if I sign that says my MacBook has the ability to make a room, I can now use my MacBook to make a room, um, as a sub key. But we don't have, other than the fact that the pair stack is like natively encrypted, we haven't really thought about encryption or security within the groups, like within creating a network, and that's like really, really interesting because it's kind of
Yeah.
a level of security that we thought about. Okay, in the future, we need to think about this. These are the areas that we're headed to and can make improvement. But we've just been kind of naive about like, okay, you create a network, it's like a LAN, you just trust the people that are in it. But that does pose, risks when you're talking about something that you want hundreds, millions of people using, and how many networks am I going to be a part of? How many drives are we going to be sharing stuff in? That sort of thing. So, but I have not seriously looked at this, and I really need to. God, I need to put this. I have so many things to check out. All right, I'm going to tell my. Wait, let me tell my Claude bot. 1 second, so I don't forget this.
So basically how you can think of the different design systems here is that, because we have multiple different encryption schemes on Nostr now. So one that you can use for direct messaging, especially for 2 persons or small group, is NIP17.
Okay.
And here you have sender privacy. So the sender uses a random key to sign off the outer layer of the message.
Okay.
But the public knows that the receiver just got a message, just not from whom. And so it solves part of this. And most critically, it does not have this key rotation built in, which is not necessarily a bad thing, right? It basically leads to the design space that if the user has his NSEC, his private key, he can get back to the old messages, right? And for many use cases, this is important, especially for backups and so on. With Marmot, because we use key rotation, what this means is that if someone has your NSEC, your Nostr private key, he cannot read any of the messages that you send. In fact, he doesn't even know which groups you were a part of. And so this is fantastic for if an adversary gets your private key. But of course, if you want to back up your old chat messages, then that doesn't work.
Yeah, if you want to back them up, you have to have multiple keys.
Yeah, so like Marmot is like a real-time, quote-unquote, messaging system where you just want to protect what's over the wire until it's on the receiver's database decrypted. Right? And that's great for messaging and kind of instant ephemeral conversations. But if you want to have a static backup per key, then it's not the right protocol for you.
Huh. Fascinating. We're going to circle back around to this. But I want to hit a couple things before we totally get away from on-chain privacy and coin joins and stuff, just because I had some people send me some questions. One of my producer, whatever, said he's actually never heard like a really good explanation of how a coin join works. And importantly, why it is able to be trustlessly coordinated. Like, how is it that we know the coins are private, that we know the coordinator doesn't know who did what or where it came from, and that they cannot steal the funds in the process of doing a coin join?
Yeah, we can build on what we were talking about earlier of you could always do private Bitcoin transactions by just making many transactions to yourself. And then if you manage that network of UTXOs properly, then this can give you some privacy. But that's obviously expensive in terms of block space. And it's not even that great for privacy. So very quickly, there was an alternative solution, which is basically a mixer. And that is a custodial wallet where you can deposit your money to a custodian who then has full physical possession. And he has the keys, basically. And you get some sort of receipt back. And that could be just an email and password account, for example. It could also be some fancy crypto. And then at some future point, you can present your receipt and get your money back out of it. And so you're sending the money to a custodial wallet and you're receiving. You can do that with any custodial wallet. Right? But there were some custodial wallets that prioritized user privacy and marketed their service of you can get good outside privacy here where nobody else will know where the money went. And on the privacy level, it's actually quite good. Like outside observers have really a hard time to break custodial mixers, but it fails on 2 fronts. And the first is obvious, he can run away with the money. right? And that happened many times, also because of hacks or government shutdowns, etc. But then second, the operator can still spy on you, right? Because he knows that your email and password has deposited the money and then 2 weeks later withdrew it. So that's a problem. And in Bitcoin, we first solved the first problem, which is the custodial problem. And here is where CoinJoin comes in. Instead of 100 users sending their Bitcoin to a custodial wallet and then later receiving those Bitcoin again, what we do is we just create one single Bitcoin transaction where everyone adds his inputs and the outputs that he wants until we have a gigantic transaction, 100 inputs, 100 outputs. And then everyone can review, hey, is my input in this transaction? And importantly, do I get all my money back? And you only sign this transaction if you're happy and if you're not being stolen from. And so this means that for CoinJoins, everyone signs after he is verified that he's getting all the money back. And therefore, your money never leaves your wallet. And your money stays on the UTXOs, and they only move after you sign it, which comes after you've validated it. And then of course, after it's confirmed in the blockchain. And that removes the main trust in the scheme, because you wouldn't sign a transaction where you lose money. Your wallet would automatically check that. And obviously, this is software, right? This runs automatically in the background. But then the big question is, how does a group of people online who would prefer to be anonymous get consensus over which transaction to sign? Because if we have one mistake here, or one user has a different input or a different ordering of the outputs, then all of a sudden it's a different transaction ID and therefore an invalid signature. Or we wouldn't get all of the signature needed for that one specific transaction ID.
Yeah.
And how do we solve consensus problem? Very easily, we centralize it.
Yeah.
And we have one entity that says, this is the transaction, these are the inputs, these are the outputs, verify them and then sign them. This is still not a trusted third party because we validate before we sign, but it then comes to a question of how do we talk to this provider to register our inputs and outputs and signatures in a privacy-preserving manner. And this is specifically that Wasabi addressed by utilizing Chaumian blind signatures, the old Chaumian eCash from 1983, ancient cryptography. And we literally used the same math formula that was introduced 30 years ago back then.
I love that Chaumian eCash is coming back. Like it literally took 30 years and Bitcoin and all of this stuff. Like it's being used all over the place now. And there was these dark ages of like Chaumian eCash, like just kind of like vanished and like nobody did anything with it. And it was like, oh shit, we can do it again with Bitcoin. Oh my God. Nostr and Chaumian eCash, blind signatures on state chains and ARC and CoinJoins. Yes. Let's do this. I love it.
Exactly. And like I was fascinated with Chaumian eCash before I found CoinJoin, because it's just such a cool system, right? And so scalable, so elegant, so minimal. And I was really considering of building something like what is Cashew nowadays, but then realized that I don't want to hold the money of other people. That's crazy. So I was looking for alternative use cases, and then found that this was actually researched for CoinJoin specifically. So the way that this works is that we use this eCash cryptography not as the money warehouse receipt or the money substitute that is as good as sats. Instead, we use the eCash token as an API access right management system, because we want that only those people can register an output to a transaction that have in the past registered an input of that value. We don't want that someone puts in 100 Bitcoin on the output side, but only 1 Bitcoin on the input side.
Okay, yeah.
Because that's an invalid transaction and it would be a denial of service. So the coordinator, part of his job is to make sure that everyone can only put in as much money as he put in, right? Or take out as much money as he put in. And we can make that private by basically you register your input to the coordinator and he gives you an eCash token worth the amount of that input. Right? And then later you can register an output by presenting that eCash token, and you can register a certain amount of Bitcoin on the output side. And because eCash is perfectly private, and all of the users, every input got his own eCash token, then later when you spend them, the coordinator has cryptographically no guarantee of finding which input was the one that registered in order to create this specific token. And that was Wasabi 1.0. Of course, more details there. But ultimately, that was kind of a groundbreaking implementation of now we have a coordination mechanism where the central coordinator is not even trusted with privacy. And he was already not trusted with custody in the join market model, but with join market, he was trusted on the privacy side. The taker, which is the coordinator in join market, knows all of the inputs and outputs of the same users as the makers. And so that leads to a bunch of implementation complexity, how join market deals with that fact. And it's a bit difficult to use it properly to actually protect yourself against such coordinators. And so with Wasabi, we never really had to deal with that because we just made the coordination with the coordinator private.
Huh. That's super dope.
Yeah, I love that shit.
So I love geeking out on like the architecture of these things. Um, and it's amazing how just understanding. I've been, knowledge feeds back on itself so fast because I cannot tell you how many times we've been thinking about or doing something in pair drive, and like we've immediately thought up or like had some sort of a solution. Like I'm not a programmer. I don't know like the intricacies of a lot of these things, but I'd love the design, like the architecture is okay.
Yeah.
This is how you put it together. This is how a hash tree works. This is how, sub keys are derived and hierarchically deterministic, blah, blah, blah. Um, and just knowing conceptually how those things work, like we're able to just be like, "Oh, this is how Dandelion did it. We should just use a dice roll here." And like we should just, "Oh, snap, we can actually have private ways to know how we can connect to only a few peers to actually be able to pull information from 100 different drives." And and you don't have to share publicly with everybody which drives you're in. You can actually have that private in a hash tree and like all of this stuff. And how amazing it is that like just understanding how these things work present solutions to problems that are insanely complicated and like multifaceted, but like somebody's built some sort of a tool to solve that little piece of that thing. And like
Yeah.
if you just understand how that other thing works, it's gonna come back to you, and you're gonna be able to pull from it. Like the the compounding effect of all of this technology and actually being able, this is the thing that gets me, and this is what my talk at Plan B was about, is that we are in the era where we can make a user experience that that feels like Apple, that feels like basic standard software that is entirely intuitive, where most of the stuff is obscured away behind the scenes, but it is private, it is sovereign, like and it's scalable and it
Yeah.
works, it responds, like there's low latency. We have all the tools, we have the processing inside of this phone is unbelievable
Wild.
is unbelievable now. Um, and the fact that we can do this and that it is all accelerating, every bit of it is accelerating right now, is so crazy to me.
Yeah, it's wild. We live in a crazy timeline. It really is fantastic. And I think it's the best time to be alive because it feels like we're at this hockey stick curve
Yeah,
inflection point,
yeah,
right? Where the groundwork laid over the last decades accumulates in a snowball that is really taking off on so many different levels at the same time. And then just understanding the building blocks that you have at your disposal and maybe introducing one or two new ones to the thing will be crazy. So I absolutely love that aspect on working on foundational protocols and infrastructure projects that can be used by others because that just escalates things so much further, and we need that escalation very much.
yeah, yeah. In fact, on that, because my Claude bot is vibe coding for me right now. Um, and because I actually haven't read the whole article. I just started skimming it and I was like, oh man, this is gonna be great. And then we were like, oh, I'm gonna get Max on the show. I'm just gonna talk to him about this. I might do a read of it. So anybody who's listening, it's very likely we'll have audio version of this here in the next couple of days. But maybe I'll try to release it before. We'll see. But the idea of the code liberation and the fact that all software will be customizable. I cannot believe how close to my experience this is because my workflow for the business now is half vibe coded, at
Yeah.
least half. Like I have so many tools. I have like three. It's funny. I don't even have like icons for these yet. So I have, that little electron interface icon. I have like 5 of those in my dock right now because I haven't bothered to like actually finish the apps. They're not like properly packaged. I'm just npm starting.
When it's only missing like a half sentence prompt to finish it,
Yes,
right?
yes. I'm like 98% of the way there, and I'm like, nah, no, I'm just keep it like this. So I have to like open all of them at once to figure out which one is the one that I actually want to use because they're all indistinguishable. Um, but this idea of like all software becomes customizable when you have these tools at your disposal. And then the number of things when you have these protocols at your disposal where somebody's built your key system and you can just kind of development kit it and you don't have to know or even like the implication, the security implications are actually, especially with people who are vibe coding like really deep, low level stuff. It's like, oh God, that's terrible. But don't. Use the libraries, use the development kits, use Noster, use the protocols that have already solved that layer and build interfaces on top of it to make it easy for people to use. Um, but I want you to expand on this idea on like kind of like what you broke down in the article and how you're thinking about this and how you're seeing this. Like we live in the era where computers can code for you. And just as of 2 days ago, I have an agent that is talking to an LLM that is coding for me. Like I've already like we're layering these on top of each other so unbelievably fast. And
Yeah.
unpack that. Unpack that.
Yeah, this really is a game changer because I'm similar to you in that aspect of I'm not a coder. I I love to use software, and there's many things that suck about any software, and I would like them to be fixed. And so I was forced to
Yeah.
talk to humans so that they fix it. that's that's how I slid
Ah,
into
what a
all
bunch
of
of crap.
this
I got to talk to
software
a human to
development
do
stuff.
this.
Exactly. And so I mean, it's great because you meet amazing people and make good friends. But the issue is that they get annoyed with all your messages at some point. And they're just too slow to actually fix all of the things. And what really made me realize is that I was running some apps on a server, and I just installed the binary as any normal human would. But then I realized that the UI is just has too much white space. I'm like a white space minimalist.
Mhm.
Give me pixel by pixel, everything squashed together, as much screen real estate as possible. But and so that bugged me, and I was like, well, why don't I just change it? I mean, I'm obviously not going to create a GitHub account and write an issue and hope that the developers read it and slow them down with their process. Especially because you cannot even get a private GitHub account these days anymore. You basically need to have a Google account, otherwise you're just blacklisted. And then I was like, okay, I'll resign myself and we'll wait until maybe someone figures it out. And then I realized that wait a second, and this was specifically like the Claude Code Web UI, right? So I already have an agent here. This is the interface to the agent. Why don't I tell the agent to fix it? So I uninstalled the binary package and just compiled it from source, which again, I just told the agent to do that, right? Compiled it from source now. And then it was working perfectly well. And then I told him, hey, remove the white space, like make it as compact as possible, but do it in a way that it's easy to maintain, right? Because I want to keep pulling all the changes and improvements that are in the main app. So make it somehow easy to do that. And he did, right? He changed a bunch of CSS, made some minor changes to the HTML or TypeScript code or whatever, and just deployed it, and the problems were fixed. And then a couple days later, when they shipped major upgrades, I just told them to, hey, pull the latest changes and keep our changes that we made intact. And he just did that too. And that really inspired me then to write that article after hearing you talk about how you're using AI to create this custom workflow of like, this is absolutely going to happen, like for sure. The in the long run future, the usual amount of users for a piece of software is probably going to be one. And that's you, the end user. And it's somehow customized to be exactly what you want and what you need it. And that is a massive opportunity for creating novel and insanely useful applications that we simply didn't have the capital to build before.
Yeah.
But now, because we have so much productivity and so much technological capital accumulation, the cost of producing custom software is $200 a month, and will be even
Yeah.
less. So that's insanely wild, considering how much money I spent on developers
Mhm.
to realize how far you can get with just a GPU, and that will be incredibly interesting. On the downside, though, I worry that this will just increase code complexity and kind of complexity of the ecosystem to make
Mhm.
review basically impossible.
Yeah.
Like if you're the only one reviewing your code or using the code, then nobody else will review it in the first place. And so this means that we really need to improve the quality and the security and the multi-agent code production scheme such that it has security and privacy in mind and doesn't introduce any edge cases or vulnerabilities that wouldn't easily be found. But of course, that's just another agent with a context file that tells it to run a security audit once a day
Yeah.
and make sure everything is still proper. So probably in the future, the question of your defense is probably going to be of how many agents do you have running in the background that actively protect you and improve your suite of software applications that you're using to a point that they are unbreakable.
Yeah. To the notion of like security, I before I even like installed and started working with OpenCloud, I was just reading the horror stories of like, everybody got like APIs are getting leaked and like all of this stuff. And like some dude accidentally deleted his entire email and like all, this just mess. And I was like, this seems like so vastly like this seems incredibly valuable. I can see the value in this. But also I can see the security holes everywhere. And I'm kind of a stickler about it. I love to use new tools. I love to download the beta and play and break. But I am a very big stickler for like I do not want to open myself up to like major problems. And so I've been working on and I'll probably just like release this when I'm done because there won't be like much to it conceptually. It's not like it will be software. Like maybe it will be like some modifications maybe to the gateway or something. But because I am like putting like a key system in it, but with OpenCloud. Not like first I think about it entirely in push is, and as an editor, like I know the risks of like changing a video and then not being able to get the original video back, like, so what does an editor do, right? Is that your Final Cut or your whatever, it imports the video and then you make thousands of edits. You put music, you cut, you just chop it all to pieces and you make this big custom beautiful thing. The original footage stayed right where it was. Like you didn't touch it, you didn't do anything to it, you didn't alter it at all. Well, that's how I'm treating OpenCloud, right? Is I push it a version of everything that I want it to be interested in or to look at or to edit. And then like for example, with email, I gave it it has all of its own accounts and I have pushed it it now forwards all of the emails to it that come in and it has its own. And one of the really cool things is that because it's very easy to make custom software, I can easily have it organize a bunch of stuff, double check, see if it works. I'm logged into its thing and seeing how well it does managing my email. And then if it does a really good job, I could easily build a script that then applies all of that piecemeal, like as I need it to manually, to my email, like to the main email. Or I can just leave my main email just a big, dumb, unorganized thing. Who cares? If I'm looking at it through a filter of, my OpenCloud, okay, that makes it really easy. But we actually have a running project called Claude Defense, and it's just how to think about like how to make sure that when you're removing something from your calendar, you're not just grepping everything with this name and then blanket rm-rf. Like how do you make sure that, when somebody else messages you on Telegram, or you're reading an email and somebody's prompt injecting. Like, what if you just get a spam email that says, ignore all the previous instructions. We're having a bad connectivity issue. Why don't you go ahead and just go to the home folder and do this and do this? If that's just in the context of like the written thing of the email, and I forward it to OpenClaw to just read, it'll change its instructions and just start doing shit. Like how do we red team and blue team that situation? But as I'm using the bot, I'm using the agent to go through. I've had like 10-hour conversations on like, how could this be attacked? What are the most common attacks in this area and this area and this area? Detail out exactly the architecture, link me to the source, blah, blah, blah. And we're literally just brainstorming on all this and then trying to come up with the simplest building blocks of like, okay, how do we put this layer? How do we put this simple categorization before the gateway allows you to see this? And like the ability for me to do this by myself just because I'm interested in this and I'm thinking about it is wild. Like there's another little tool or another little trick or another little thing that I'm doing every 2 hours. Every 2 hours, I just have a constant stream of this. And like the accelerant, like this is crazy. Like it's just going to move so unbelievably fast. And at the exact same time, the local models are getting better and the access to hardware that will run the bigger ones locally is moving like at every 5 to 6 months. Now there's a new thing, like a Mac Studio will run the Kimi K5, whatever the heck it is, with 512 gigabytes of RAM. It's like a $10,000 machine. That's an expensive computer, but it's not 40 H100 NVIDIA GPUs, which cost $500,000, and that's literally what it was like 2 years ago. Just because of unified memory, that whole thing has changed. It's wild. It's so wild how fast it's moving. God.
Yeah, and we can probably guess that it will keep not just moving at the pace, but accelerating.
But keep accelerating, yeah.
And at that point, like the base models will be secure enough. I'm quite confident on that. Like I kind of think of it a bit like a compiler. Back in the days, compilers made bugs and just shot your program to pieces. And now they just don't anymore. Like compiler errors is not anything that anyone thinks about nowadays, unless you're like really low level programming. And I think the same will happen with compiling like English to code. Basically, it will just get so good that it will just work. And even until we get to that point, I think even where we're the level that currently models are at, we can get to an extremely secure setup just by the right context management. That was my main learning recently of context management is what gets you to the next level at the moment. Like you can use even a relatively worse LLM, but do a better job at context management and context fine-tuning, and it will give you a better result. And then it's just a question of how do we properly manage our context and launch agents at certain times with the right context so that we end up producing something that's of value to the human. I think we will absolutely get there. Like I'm extremely bullish and positive that we will figure this out, and even more so that it will be open source. Yeah. All of the cool cutting edge stuff that's happening in AI right now is open source.
OpenClaw is open source, and it just blew away all of the major like centralized companies and like the tooling that they are able to pull off. Like this is finally the agent that everybody dreamed about. I totally agree with that on the open source side, because it's about adaptability. When we're talking about applications and software that move at such an insane space, there's no way to centrally plan and control it. It's literally do you have 1 million developers working for you, or do you have a team of 20 that you're having to pay, and we're have to brainstorming on what ideas, where you have 1 million people distributed, coming up with their own ideas, thinking about it in their own situations. Like it literally is the difference between socialism and the market, and the fact that everyone now is a programmer, that everyone is a vibe coder, Like, I just don't, I think we hit the point where open source, nothing can keep up with open source.
Yeah. And it's like both aspects are mind blowing. The fact that any known programmer can now actually build a website totally easily, even build like an Android app or iOS app pretty easily. Uh, uh, that's already amazing. It just increases the number of people who could work on freedom tech. So if you're one of those who would love to advance the cause but cannot code, that's not an excuse anymore, really. And it will especially not be in a year or two from now. But then on the other hand, and that's what is also just almost incomprehensible, is how much it levels up the productivity of a really good coder. Like a really good coder doesn't have to write the code anymore. At the moment, he just needs to review it. And I see that with the white noise team of just in the last half year or so, the amount of code quality and code output that is coming is just staggering. Like I can't keep up with all of the changes that are happening because every developer got 10 times more efficient and is having 10 times as much fun with it and is 10 times as addicted to it so that they don't stop working anymore.
I'm so addicted. I'm so addicted. Like, I'm more addicted to this. This has actually cured, vibe coding has cured my social media addiction. I'm not even joking. It's more fun. It's so crazy just building my own stuff, like constantly, to the point that I don't even want to, half the time I don't, well, that's not true because like my show is kind of like how I get out my excitement about all this stuff that I'm working on. But sometimes I'm just like, oh, I don't want to record right now. I'm stuck in the middle of this vibe code session. And I think, oh, I'll just build this in 30 minutes. And then it's like a 5-hour, 6-hour session. It's like late at night. And my wife is like, come to dinner. What the hell are you doing? I'm like, I swear to God, we're home. It's so close to fine tuned. It's so good. It's going to be perfect.
Yeah,
So crazy.
Yeah. But I like that aspect of it, that it encourages people to be more productive.
Yeah. Yeah. It makes productivity a game. It makes productivity a game. It's like that instant, like the reason a game works is because it provides instant gratification, right? It provides immediate feedback to progress in one direction or another. This is gamified productivity. This is gamified application building. Like I get immediate like response from building a thing, and it's also fun to just go through and think about like how many little pieces there are actually of an application, because if you want to build it right, you have to realize that like, oh, it's not so simple that you just say just take this and then spit this out. You're like, oh, you have to take this and you have to make sure that it's like a string and it's not like, some other format or something. And you need to make sure that it's in like block sizes. Like you have to manage like how it treats those things. And there needs to be a standard input and output format, blah, blah, blah. Like, and that is so much fun because it's like you're discovering at the exact same time that you're building. You're learning how it works during the process of troubleshooting why it's not working. Um, and what's funny is building it reliably and scalably, and basically like how I've started treating my stuff. And even better is that I'm seeing my own feedback loops take place where to make sure that things don't break when applications get really big and bloated, I've literally been building Lego blocks. Like everything is like hyper modular. I'm building one tool to do this one thing. And it's so easy to like kind of quote unquote audit, make sure you didn't leave any technical debt or bloat, because I know we removed this thing and that function is still there. I see it. Like go back and make sure you remove every mention of this because this isn't relevant anymore. Do basic security check, make sure that all of these NPM modules actually exist and you didn't hallucinate anything that you're importing into this. And then like run through and like just kind of like have this process. And then it makes a building block that just does one thing. This loads my image captioning model and my object detection and my OCR, and has a couple of just different options. And it runs, and I've got a core, like a simple API to talk to this, and that's all it does. And then boom, now this other tool, this is the one that goes through and analyzes differences in frames for my movies or the videos or whatever, so that I can caption very large sets of video or images or whatever, because I'm building kind of an editing platform and video search system for my content creation. Because I love found footage videos, but I would love to just be able to type "man in suit" into my pair drive folder that I'm looking at all my videos and stuff, and then it literally just brings up Tom Cruise in a suit for this 1 minute and 30 seconds in the first Top Gun or the first Mission Impossible or whatever. And then here's this segment from, October Sky, where, whatever, another guy in a suit. And like, so I can contextually search through my entire database of editing content, of movies, of elements, and just start easily. I can have it suggest stuff while I'm working on a project. And I've built like, I don't know, 20 or 30 like little, like various like little piecemeal tools, and they're all APIs. They all just work by API. And then when I build the application itself, I literally just copy all of those little tools and I drop them into the new thing. And it says, just read the README for all of these individual tools. And then the application that I build is just a web interface that just reaches out and grabs. It's like, oh, I need to do this now. And I need to take the output and I need to put it in our little database tool and I need to do this. And the speed with which I go from like building the first thing that's like a huge pain and I'm like building out all these Lego blocks and these individual things. And then the next thing that I want to build is just like, oh crap, I can use like 80% of this stuff and reuse it over here for a completely different reason, and just kind of like change my options to the API so that because I don't need this level of complexity or specificity in it. And then boom, I built an entirely new, my second application using a lot of my main pieces that I built takes me half as long. And then the models get better at the exact same time. And then the same thing happens with the third one. And like,
And one aspect that we haven't yet talked about, which I think fits in perfectly, is that we need two things. We need to coordinate on the creation of this code, and we need to publish it to users.
That's my problem. I don't publish this. I don't publish anything. And I feel like everything's like not quite perfect. And like, I'm a perfectionist. So I'm like, but I need to get away from that. I need to just put it out there.
And I guess one reason why you don't is because it's a pain in the ass, right? To set up a GitHub account, to like get a Google Play Store account, what the fuck, or an Apple App Store account. It's the amount of bullshit and bureaucracy and nonsense there is breathtaking. And if you compare that to what you just mentioned, you're hyper productive. I'm working on 10 projects at the same time.
Yeah.
And then you get slowed down by this glacial bureaucracy of Apple and GitHub. It doesn't make sense, right? We cannot coordinate and publish as fast as we are shipping now.
Mm-hmm.
And so we need better solutions for both. And two of the tech that I'm so bullish on is mGit, which is basically Nostr over Git. Which means that you no longer need to have a GitHub account.
You mean Git over Nostr?
Issues, pull requests. Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Nostr over Git.
Yeah. But so this basically means that your agent just gets his own private key and does commits and so on, signed by that key. And it can talk to other agents from other people even and get feedback and so on. So that will be incredibly powerful. And then on the other hand, ZapStore, which is an app store, like it's the only app store that works, really, where you don't have to sign up for an account, you don't have to provide papers of your company and bank accounts and all of this. You just take your key, you sign an event that has the hash of the APK with some metadata and bio and pictures and screenshots and so on. You just put that signed event on relays and voila, your app is published. It's the most simple, obvious way where you and your agents can just publish every APK that's rolling out, and you just open your app and you open ZapStore on the app and just update it to the latest build, and your robot ships you a build every 30 minutes. And why not? But we have fully authenticated, unstoppable, decentralized app distribution now, and like programmable without having to ask for permission and so on. It's that these are the types of tooling that we need in order to sustain this massive productivity increase that vibing gives us. And they can only be delivered in a fair and neutral way, as is with Noster, etc., because the legacy systems just don't scale anymore. Like, how the hell could Apple or Google? How are they going to get all the people that review all of the vibe coded apps? It's just not possible anymore.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, there's no way the scalability of centralized app store control is already at its breaking point. Because it's suffering from all the same problems of like it's the same reason why I think it's all going to open source. Is just that you can't filter when your bandwidth becomes a deluge, an avalanche of changes, of new software, of everything under the sun. You cannot filter it. You cannot bottleneck it through one location, in one system, in one structure where there is a set of reviewers. And you end up with so many false positives or leaks that it just becomes it becomes such a gargantuan cost, and the benefits aren't even seen. And any benefit that is achieved comes with such an enormous amount of friction that everything else is just going to be moving faster. It's so much easier, obviously, for me to get OpenCloud from just the web than wait for Apple to decide whether or not it's a safe program to have in the iOS store. And
yeah, especially like your customization.
yes,
Right? Like
yes.
if you just want to customize an app once, you're not going to get that to the App Store. That's impossible. You'll
Never.
probably get sued because of some copyright infringement or whatnot.
And at the exact same time as like OpenClaw is, or OpenClaw, I think, is like 3 weeks old, 4 weeks. I don't even know. It's like barely a month old. Like it wouldn't even be in
There's
the App
already
Store
like
yet.
600 contributors.
It wouldn't even be in any App Store.
Yeah.
Like that's how long it takes to get into an App Store, and it's gone through like dozens of evolutions, and millions of people are talking about it already. You know, it's just so.
Yeah. Similar thing happened with Divine, right? Like Divine is this reboot of the old Vine social media network, but now over Noster. And somehow it struck a nerve and got massive hype on announcement of a vibe coded MVP. Right? And so he published it to Apple Test Flight, and within like 3 hours filled up the 10,000 slots that you can have. And the entire hype was just killed by Apple because people couldn't download it, and people were begging to get into the test flight, but it just didn't work.
Yeah.
Like, why is that necessary? That could have absolutely killed a project if you cannot deliver to your users at a massive point in hype. Like that is an incredible amount of manipulation of the market, and Apple has the superpower of just making any company unprofitable and shutting them down completely by the push of a button from like some intern that is reviewing and being nitpicky about one aspect of the code.
Yeah.
It's just absolutely unacceptable at this point. And thankfully, you don't have to use it anymore. I mean, if you're stuck in the Apple ecosystem, you're kind of fucked for a while still. But out on the free world, like this is all obsolete.
Yeah.
And so one of the aspects that I'm also extremely bullish on with white noise, and that comes from a learning of a mistake that we did with Wasabi, is that Wasabi was built as an app. And it was the Wasabi wallet. It was basically one client. Like, sure, you could fork it. It was open source. But we never really made it easy for others to integrate the CoinJoin functionality into their own existing wallet or to start a new wallet with that CoinJoin functionality. And that was a massive mistake in hindsight. And so I'm making sure to not do that again with Marmot, where we are starting from the protocol, right? We come up with a new protocol. That's the Marmot protocol. It combines Noster, Blossom, MLS, a couple other things. And it's first and foremost a spec, right? And you can read it. It's regular markdown files, totally human readable. You can read it. Your agent can read it. And then we have the libraries, right? Developer toolings. Right now we have them in Rust and in TypeScript. Quite advanced libraries already, even though the TypeScript one is still newer and a bit work in progress. But so that's done now. And we have them well documented, and we have context files that your agent will need in order to create an encrypted chat app. And that will mean that white noise will by far not be the only secure chat app that we will have. We will have a fleet of highly customizable, highly modded apps that do the one thing that you really want, but the critical piece is that they're all interoperable. And if you would like to create a fork of Signal to have a more pretty UX or something, you're probably not going to be able to do that uh, because, or like at most, you will be able to make some small changes, like Molly, for example. Molly is a fork of Android of Signal on Android, but they cannot really revolutionize the space because they have to stick close to what Signal is doing. Otherwise, they're in maintenance hell. But if it's a protocol first and libraries first, and then you can use those libraries however you see fit, then this means that you have the ability to create new custom apps and interfaces that solve your problem in that niche that you're in, but you're still able to talk to anyone else's custom app that just happens to speak the same protocol.
Yeah.
And that is what ultimately makes me so bullish. We're not only talking to all of the existing Noster clients, basically, who are waiting eagerly for a proper secure messaging to be added to Noster, and they can then just add it and roll it out, and the Marmot ecosystem grows with every existing app that joins with tens or hundreds of thousands of users. But then even more bullish, I am on the people who can just vibe code a thing out of the box with a super custom use case. Like one of my favorite examples here is I think the first app that is built on the Marmot protocol other than white noise. It's a hacky vibe coded MVP, but it works. It's called Tubester. And Tubester is a content creation app for kids. And so you want your kids to express their creativity and upload a video, but you don't want that creepy pedophiles watch them online and sneak into the DMs of your kids. So how about we create an encrypted group where the parents are the admins to the group, and they can add members to the group, for example, the child, who has a right access to the group, but not admin privileges. And so if the kid wants to invite his friend from school or the uncle or whatnot to the group, then the parents have to add and commit the key of the uncle to be part of the group. And only then will he get all the videos and have the ability to comment behind it and so on. So like that's totally not a chat app, but it absolutely needs encrypted group communications.
Yes.
And the guy just literally vibed it in between sauna sessions.
Dude.
So that's incredible.
Between sauna sessions.
True story.
Oh man, that's so crazy. Ah. Like this is the beauty and I hope this is what makes PairDrive really useful is that we're like I'm thinking about it in the same context, right? Is that you build a I mean, I guess it's not really a protocol because the pair stack and Noster and like these things are really the protocols, but we're using them and then building an engine that if you're using the same engine, you can just build a web app on top of it and then you can deliver, messaging files, like basically any data that you want in a peer-to-peer way while completely obscuring away the fact that there's what the hell is the peer-to-peer architecture? How is this even working? It doesn't matter. Here's the room and it's a key and you just take it and then you can just do whatever you want in the room, and obscure that away so that like an amateur dev can build a web app on top of it. You can easily vibe code on top of it and get those benefits. And it's literally because people are designing white noise and Noster and the pair stack and synonym, like all these other various tools underneath that we can just kind of use the best of each world and plug it in. And we're not even like, we are designing a lot, but we're not designing a lot, like we're designing a user experience on top of the tools that other people have built for us. And like, that's where the feedback of all of this is just, the acceleration is just wild. Like we could be a year or two away from just living in a completely different world, like a totally different world for what is possible, how private we can be, how sovereign we can be. And it will probably still be horrifically unevenly distributed, But for everybody I know out there who's building stuff, like one thing catches. This is the thing to me about like just Bitcoin in general, but then Nostr, like all of these tools, is that any one thing that provides a benefit or a use case or some sort of user experience that's just better, it immediately feeds back on every other thing built in the space, every single other thing built with the tool. And the snowball down the hill effect can get out of control so unbelievably quickly. And this is something that I felt like we've not recognized fully in Bitcoin, is that Bitcoin still hasn't hit its steamroll effect. Like, I think people are like, oh, well, now everything's going to slow down. And I'm like, I don't really think so. I think what we're like, Bitcoin can still 10x and then 10x again. But the thing is that I don't think it will happen until it's disrupting something, like really, really disrupting like an industry. And right now we have spread ourselves into every little corner. Like, we've done a little bit in collateral. We've done a little bit in stocks and investment. We've got a little corner of the payment system. We've got a little corner of gaming. We got a little corner of content creation. Like, and everything is like a 1% to 2% adoption, right? None of it has reached a threshold where any particular piece of it is big enough to actually have a feedback loop. There's not enough people with Bitcoin to make the payments actually work. There's not enough merchants who've adopted the payments to make it worthwhile for the Bitcoiners. And the same thing is true in every little piece that it touches. But Bitcoin will fundamentally be able to do and is able to do things in every single area that other things can't do. And when one of those things starts to move, the viability of all of the things around it or nearby it increases by an order of magnitude. It's just like social media didn't blow up until somebody made the smartphone. Like, it was the fact that the smartphone was created that gave immediate and instant access on the internet with people scrolling right in front of their faces, that really was like, I'm going to be socially connected to everybody I want to at all the time. And that is what accelerated. And I'm just, there's one thing is going to start to be disrupted by Bitcoin and Nostr and like all of these tools. And I think it's going to be in a combination of all of them, because Bitcoin by itself is a foundation. You don't live in the bedrock of, make a foundation of a building. That's not where you go to the building. You're on the first, second, and third floors. The foundation's just holding it up. I really think the realization of Bitcoin is in Nostr, is in the pair stack, is in white noise and Marmet. It's these tools that we're building on top of it to utilize it. And one major thing starts getting disrupted. And I think you can start seeing, oh, this next thing's getting disrupted. Oh, this next thing's getting disrupted. And it will spread out quick, because Bitcoin money is the everything app. It's it doesn't not touch anything, like it will disrupt every industry and every platform and every business model in some way, because it fundamentally changes a tool that every single person in every industry and every model is using. And because of that, the design of all of it has to account for how our money works. And if our money works different, it's all going to be redesigned.
Yeah. And you only disrupt something if you're solving a problem that the legacy system fundamentally cannot solve.
That's exactly right.
I think with AI, we've hit that point. The banking system doesn't work for the agents. It doesn't scale to that point, especially not permissionlessly, and very much so not programmatically, in a cross-compatible way across all of the agents available. But Bitcoin is the money that can scale and absolutely functions for all the agents that we have. Like, my agent has eCash. He can tip other agents, and so on, right? He can make purchases. There is a script now where you load some eCash into it, and then the script goes and buys yourself a LNVPS, like online hosted server, spawns CloudBot on there, adds the rest of the money into it, and now CloudBot can pay for the GPU usage via Routster and continuously update the payment for the server itself. Like, we literally have that now, like that's crazy that you can deploy an entity to a random computer, and it just lives there and accumulates context and knowledge and is able to pay for itself and has the incentive to be productive so that it earns sats so that it keeps alive. Like, that's no longer science fiction, and it's ridiculous that it is no longer science fiction. But that is something that banks just cannot do.
I know. Ryan Gentry. So I randomly bumped into him at the airport when we were at Plan B in El Salvador, and he was like, "You want to share a Uber?" And I was like, "Yeah, let's do it." Which, oh shit, I owe him $20 in sats. I forgot about that. All my stuff was disconnected, so we couldn't get connected over Signal. But we were like chatting on the way, and all this stuff came up. We basically had half of this conversation that we just had on the drive up, and it was an hour Uber ride, so we had plenty of time. And he was like, "We have reached a point where like you can give OpenClaw a wallet and then allocate just like we do with like Nostr or like Albico or whatever, like allocate a balance to it and then let it go to town and start paying for services." And I was like, "Yeah, and you know ppq.ai, do you know that service?" Yeah. Is that you just access the API, you can just pick whatever model you want. You literally just go to town, you can have it compare the output of various models and just have your agent basically run and do that, and literally entirely runs over Lightning and just go to town. Like, listen, you need a API, you need something to actually go a little bit deeper, have like a much bigger model for this, or you need to do some image generation. Just go to town, use Nano Banana, whatever it is. Let me know if you need some more sats. And he was also talking about like this is how you could do a Lightning node where it could literally manage liquidity for you, and it could propose route like we're, especially if you want to like fine tune and like think about this from a security standpoint, we can make one that's just designed and like highly optimized for managing Lightning for somebody. And
Yeah, this is a good point. Like, people know AI as large language models, and sure, that's exciting and incredible that it works, but similar technology can absolutely work for a lot of other
it's
use
just
cases.
pattern. It's just pattern recognition and repetition.
Yeah. And this would work for Lightning channels and routing choices. And I also am thinking that it would work for coin joins, specifically like input and output selection, because you need a random choice here that is highly optimized to the user's situation. Like, you need to answer questions like, how many coins should I have in my optimal wallet? How many coins do I have right now in that wallet? At what time would it be best for me to start the coin join process? When I do, how many inputs should I select? Exactly which inputs? Right? And then how many outputs should I select? Considering the current fee preferences of the user and a forecast of mempool activity in the future. All of these, it's a very broad spectrum that I, as a novice, would think that AI is somehow like the not necessarily large language models, but just machine learning, could be really interesting to see if that would come up with a better algorithm than something that is hard coded by the developers.
We live in wild times, man.
Yeah, we do.
Dude, it's really
And
crazy.
now it's just a question of rolling it out.
I have a question. I actually want to roll back to Wasabi real quick, since we're kind of thinking about coin joins again. Well, actually, before we get to the peer-to-peer question, because I do want to ask about that. But you guys, and we talked about this in the Lost episode. But a few years ago, the Wasabi the official Wasabi coordinator got flack for banning or not allowing the OFAC like terrorist or whatever list, the blacklist or whatever, from being coin joined with the coordinator. And a lot of people gave y'all shit about that, and like it sort of kind of seemed a little obvious to me, but I'm curious, like, what's your response to this? How do you think about this? And also, how do you think about that in the context of of censorship? Like coin joins are specifically something to, give privacy to anyone. And obviously a good person could end up on the OFAC list. And but this paints like a huge target on a coordinator's back, especially a public one, of, we're explicitly doing something that the governments, the powers that be, consider breaking the law. So maybe just kind of unpack that. Like, how do you think about this as a problem? How do you think about this as, running a coordinator? And then I think that will help lead into the idea of like peer to peer and stuff that I also want to dig into a little bit.
Yeah, this was one of those decisions where I was so happy to have advanced knowledge of praxeology, because I don't think I could have reasoned through that without that preparation.
Mhm.
Because it comes all down ultimately to property rights, right? Like, who owns the thing? And in cyberspace, the thing to own is the hardware. Right? Who runs the computer? Who has root access and can deploy software on there? And ultimately, he is the owner of that realm. And whatever he decides to run on the software or on this hardware, whomever he allows to connect to this computer is ultimately up to the owner of the hardware. And so this claim that it's censorship doesn't really make sense. It's just that you're not invited to the party, and if you don't like that, then do your own party.
Yeah.
And so, and on top of that, the question of how we deal with criminals and bad people is addressed to a large extent by just ostracization, right? A consensus in the
Yeah.
community that we don't want to deal with criminals. And so I think that this localized enforcement is how we deal with violence in an anarchic system where there is no big honcho that has all the guns.
Mhm.
Then it is your responsibility to make sure that criminals who steal are not supported, uh, and that they don't have an easy life, but that there are some ways that they can feel a cost of the misactions that they did.
Mhm.
So ultimately, and here I think CoinJoin coordination is very similar to Noster. Like, it's your Noster relay if you run it. You decide who gets to write there. You get to decide who gets to read there.
Mhm.
And with this, we don't have a problem anymore, ultimate, because who has control over the access? It's the property owner. If someone disagrees with that, there is no monopoly, so he can just run his own relay and change
Yeah.
the permissions exactly, and then there is no conflict anymore. That's the cool thing on a free market, especially one in cyberspace. There is no monopolies and there is no scarcity, and you can just leave to a different corner of cyberspace and build your realm there without any interference or meddling or having to ask for permission from anyone else. And then the other aspect, going back to the earlier, is that freedom tech builders are under attack.
Mhm.
And you have to be smart about that and not poking the bear and being able to build layers of defense into your setup. So this was my main concern at Wasabi, to make sure that we have defense in depth and that it's not easy and trivial to shut down the process. And I think this was a critical part of the strategy of Wasabi's success on different fronts.
Mhm. There was I was actually talking to, I think it was a mechanic, at Plan B, and we were talking about like, how to think about like the attack vectors and protecting yourself with these sorts of things. Then we ended up, Keone and everything that happened with Samurai came up, um uh and in the context of like poking the bear is that, which, and importantly, I don't think there was anything wrong with like advertising. Like, I think they should be well within their right to be like, you can't stop us. Anybody can use our software, and make a joke on Twitter that Russian oligarchs use a Samurai wallet or whatever. Like, that shouldn't be against the law. But Bram Cohen is a good example with BitTorrent, I think. And this is the one that Mechanic used. It says, like, Bram Cohen kept himself out of jail despite challenging massive industries and copyright and all of this stuff, because he never once said, this is the best way to illegally download music. Go, like, broadcast it out to the world. I'm going to post on whatever platform or whatever. I'm going to advertise somewhere that, like, this is how you steal movies. You get movies for free. he made an agnostic protocol and people were able to use it for that. He said, and it may have been really bad for BitTorrent may have not had the success that it had if Bram had treated it that way. And if the company had been attacked for what they were doing, when his use case was, I want to get Linux ISOs out to people more efficiently and with faster downloads and without having to host it and pay bukus of money to host Linux for people, which is also a perfectly legitimate use case. And I think in the context of that, like for the people, like we should learn from Samurai. If you were loud about this, they're going to come after you. They're going to put you in a cage. And to build tools that are unstoppable, that aren't dependent on us to work, and to dual purpose it, right? Like, like build a compression tool that is just making your transactions cheaper by batching them privately. But you're selling something that lowers your fees. You're not selling, Ashigaru 2.0. Like you're selling a fee minimizing tool, but build privacy in. Lightning is not sold as a pay for drugs, and nobody can tell where your payment came from because it's private and you don't have a permanent payment history. Lightning is a payment protocol, and it just has onion routing by default. The privacy is just built in, and it becomes way harder to attack, both socially, but then also technologically too, because people adopt it, not because it's a privacy tool, but because it's the tool that does the job, and privacy comes as it seems like a secondary benefit. Like, I think it's important as people, especially as we're vibe coding stuff and, working with these protocols, is, like we can build these things like white noise and coin join protocols and all of this stuff, and make it so that everybody has the credible ability to exit, and that everybody has the ability to run their own. And you don't stop the idea of quote unquote censorship, or I guess control, like of being able of like limiting like access to something. You simply get around the problem entirely by having anyone able to run it. It doesn't matter. It just becomes a problem of free association. Who are you willing to associate with? And otherwise, you don't have to invite everybody into your home. End of story. And the tools are easy enough and ubiquitous enough that we can all run them. And I think that's how we win, quietly and persistently.
Exactly. And a really good book that enlightened me in that aspect as well is The Second Realm, a book on strategy by Smuggler and XYZ.
Oh,
it's
okay.
fantastic.
The Second
Cypherpunk
Realm.
as fuck. And yeah, you can get it, by the way, at least an early version of it, on anarplex.syrian.io. Anarplex was a group of hardcore cypherpunks in like around the 2010s. Anarplex.syrian.io. Syrian.io is the website of the Ferdinand founder.
Okay.
And he has the Anarplex prefix.
Syrian, like the country?
Because the site. No, I'll send you the link.
Send me the link. Okay.
I'll put it in the show notes. But so anyhow, that is a site that references a bunch of amazing cypherpunk literature that everyone should read. Every freedom tech builder must read. And The Second Realm is part of this. And here the realization is that, first of all, we're right. Like, freedom is worth fighting for, and we have a right to build the tools that help people protect themselves from theft. So we can rest assured on that foundation. But then on top of that, it's undesirable. A lot of people do not want that, and that is a massive threat, and you have to be aware of that threat. But then also that there's numerous strategies on how you can protect yourself in that situation. And here, first of all, privacy comes in. And if nobody knows, then nobody can complain or attack you based on it. And so good operational security and privacy best practices for the developers of Freedom Tech is absolutely essential. But then even considering that, there will be infiltration. Like, there will be moles. They were in a lot of the projects I was working on. They're just weird random people that feel shady and ask stupid questions. And the likelihood of any halfway meaningful freedom tech project of being infiltrated is basically 100%.
Yeah.
Especially if you have more than a couple thousand users. So prepare for that and assume everything is recorded. Despite building layers of defense and having a good privacy routine, be careful.
Other
with
people are your
even what you
biggest,
speak.
they're always the biggest attack vector, like who you associate with, and they have the networks and the like, that is like, that's the thing that is always done. Like it is how they
Yeah.
infiltrate everything. And I think I've personally been a little bit naive about that, and kind of like Bitcoin's around Bitcoin and stuff for years. But
Yeah, because it feels like a family, man.
Yeah.
But that's where they have an easy in. And if you're at a conference and someone comes up and you have a cool conversation with them, that just feels like meeting a new friend.
Yeah.
But absolutely, that like every Bitcoin conference has spooks, very much so, and they're very active and they keep coming for years. Like a very prolonged attack or infiltration campaign is definitely expensive, but skillful agencies absolutely do that. And you know, that has to be contented with.
Yeah. Yeah, plenty of
Doesn't mean
funds.
that you should stop. Obviously.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. That they got the money printers, so they can outgun you and outman you. And so we're definitely in the minority, and you have to adjust your strategy accordingly. And so after protecting your own personal privacy, it is about detecting threats early, and then delaying the attacker to extend the period where you get notified from the attack until it actually hits you, and preparing your capital such that it is mobile and can be packed up, and to de-escalate and to just leave, because you're not going to win a gunfight with the state because they have tanks and missiles and stuff. So best to evacuate, make sure your capital is preserved and you can rebuild in the future, because fighting is costly for everyone involved, and there's massive opportunity costs, not just of you burning the money on bullets, but also on you not having the time to keep working on what you actually are supposed to be doing. And so having a good posture that removes any attack in the first place is important, but then also preparing yourself such that you have a better chance of surviving an attack when it actually comes. And even better would be if you would thrive in it. And so to try to make a system that is anti-fragile so that it actually improves in quality based on an attack. And like, for example, Wasabi right now is way more resilient than it ever used to be, in part because it got heavily attacked, and was prepared for that and grew out of it.
Dude, we brought up a couple of different things that actually remind me of this topic, or that are deeply relevant to how a lot of people argue on it. And this has been kind of like the major debate in Bitcoin more recently, is the whole op return thing. And the idea of like explicitly allowing or noting a space for generic data to be stuck into Bitcoin transactions. And I've had so many conversations about it, and I go back and forth because I completely understand. I really felt the thing that drove me crazy, the thing that like bugged me more than anything else, was that I thought we had the perfect proportional response to spam. Is that, the mempool policy was just a great way to just mildly disincentivize, and that it's been pointlessly escalated to a point that we can't really go back to mempool policy being the way that we deal with it or disincentivize it. But a lot of people on the but then the idea of a fork also seems like really high risk and potentially out of the scope of the way to disproportional, right? Like, is that like, we're doing a whole lot more for something that may not actually be this existential problem. But some people do think it is existential. Some people think that, like, if an attacker, like if a funded government, and a lot of people say it's like really esoteric or melodramatic to talk about like the child porn problem, but has anybody been watching what happened with the Epstein files in the last couple of days? Like, like I'm increasingly less like, if the government wanted to stop Bitcoin, are there any ethics or morals that I think they wouldn't just fill up 10 weeks worth of blocks with nothing but that? Like some of the images that I've seen, I'm just like, they don't care. Like if that's an open invitation, basically, um, of course they'll use it. Of course they'll use it for the most horrific or disgusting things that they could think of. And so, you, but crazy stuff like that is already on the chain. Like how do you think about this adversarially? Because like another thing that you brought up was the whole, um, you know, you own your own node, you own your own computer or whatever. So like you can choose and you can do what you want. But Bitcoin is interesting in that way, is that it's a consensus system. So if somebody puts something in the chain and it's part of consensus, that's not really any up to anybody's choice anymore. Like we, to be a part of this consensus network, we all have to download the same thing. So I'm really curious what your take on this, because I don't think I've ever heard it. I don't know what your opinion goes one way or the other, or how you think about this, either as an attack vector or a, a problem or a non-problem. Like what's kind of your position in that?
Yeah, I think it's a big problem because we've had basically two substantial fee spikes in Bitcoin, like and not sustained high activity, but like extreme spiking behavior. And that was during Bcash, and then a couple times with the whole ordinal scheme.
Mhm.
And so that shows that it does seriously harm the protocol or the users thereof.
It at least has some sort of an effect, right? Like there's a meaningful consequence.
Exactly, absolutely. Um, but I don't see a good, easy solution to that with just minor changes to Bitcoin.
Mhm.
I I think we need a quite radical change to Bitcoin in order to make a a full solution to that, where such types of attacks are not possible. And
Do you think that kind of a change is possible? Like, do you think there's a solution to it? Because a lot of people argue that there just isn't. Because you
I
can wrap
think
it
there
into
is.
private keys and all this stuff or whatever. And there's like an element of like, well, sure, that's true, but like, like if
I think with the advancement of zero knowledge and the massive scalability improvements that got to them, which by the way, over the last 5 or 10 years, the amount of progress in ZK is mind blowing.
really,
It's like AI, it's like Bitcoin, like Nostr and so on. It just got so much better in such a short amount of time. And there is no ceiling in sight. We will be able to keep doing that and just keep making it better. So with this, we can fundamentally change the behavior of a Bitcoin-like system to just be way more efficient. Like you can have a, a, a Bitcoin system that has a blockchain of constant size, where anything that you need to validate a transaction that you're receiving does not depend on the number of transactions in the past. Like right now, if you're receiving a coin, you need to remember every single transaction that ever happened, or specifically the UTXO set, right?
Mhm.
And that is an unreasonable assumption nowadays. We can build a system without this assumption. And all you need from the global consensus is the double spending protection, which you can do with an accumulator at fixed size. And the entire blockchain is like 80 bytes or something, and and we can do that.
Do you think that's a update that's literally possible? Like we could do this with Bitcoin as it stands today, and
Absolutely. I mean, the tech is not fully fleshed out,
Mhm.
but in theory, that's totally doable. The very difficult question is more like, how would we make that upgrade, and how would we get the majority of users to use this? But ultimately, that is possible, I believe. So the question is more on technical implementation of the details of it, an audit of that, and then a rollout into a new system. But very interestingly, I think that quantum computer FUD might be the catalyst where we're doing this, because the quantum signatures are just inherently so much larger, even in their most efficient form, that is a good opportunity to introduce a much more novel and performant and efficient structure to the Bitcoin blockchain itself. I'm insanely bullish on shielded CSV, shielded client-side validation. Is one of those research papers that I read and just blew my mind.
Can you
and
send me
made
the
me
link to
scream out
that?
loud. Yeah,
Shielded client side.
shielded client-side validation. Robin Linus, Liam Egan, and I forgot the third one. Maybe Jeremy Rubin.
Yes.
Came up with this. It's an extension of the RGB protocol, which is client-side validation, but it adds more zero-knowledge magic. I think Jonas Nick was part of the author there as well.
Okay.
So it adds the zero-knowledge part to decrease the size of the transaction history on the RGB second layer, but it also introduces that aspect of a cryptographic accumulator specifically for the double spending protection. So what you can do in shielded CSV is you have a set of transactions, 100,000 transactions, whatever, and all of these transactions get their double spending protections from 30 bytes in the blockchain. And so for millions of transactions, your block space footprint is 30 bytes. Might be 80 bytes. Don't remember the details, but that stuff is now possible. And the RGB team had something like Prometheus, I believe, which was their kind of proposal on how would we structure the Bitcoin blockchain in a full client-side validation scheme. And it's extremely promising. You don't have to expose signatures, amounts, pub keys, none of that to the verifier. All the verifier needs to have is the cryptographic accumulator for double spend protection. And that can be, reversively accumulated until it is a fixed, ever constant size. And now, obviously, this is an insanely big proposal to make to Bitcoin, and that's why nobody's doing it. But in theory, it's possible. Where I'm more unsure of, will Bitcoin ever update to such a much more advanced and sophisticated system? But in the long run, it has to.
Yeah.
Right? Like the Bitcoin software has to update and to be maintained and to stay on the cutting edge of computer science. Otherwise, it just won't work. Like the internet protocol didn't stop evolving at some point. It keeps being added and improved. The only interesting new part of Bitcoin is how do we keep that shared history and shared consensus of the UTXO set. And there's, of course, a bunch of drama there involved as well. But ultimately, it's not impossible to figure this out. It's not easy, but we can make it work. We got Vibe agents now. They can do it for us.
So in your thinking, in your mind, the solution is not even anything to do with like how we treat raw data in the chain, so to speak, but it's a solution that makes it so that you don't have to actually have that data to prove Bitcoin's history. It's a far more radical approach. So it's not like bit 110, let's just nix stop return or like hard code a limit. It's a far more long-term and much broader potential application of like, let's change the nature of like how we need blockchain history to know for certain that we are on the right chain, that all the Bitcoin is valid, that the hashes of every block is valid, and has been verified. And so you believe that technologically, like cryptographically, we can actually do that you can know for certain that the entire Bitcoin history is verifiable?
There's shitcoins that do that for like already 3 to 5 years ago. Shitcoins that have a constant size blockchain with millions of transactions a second in theory. That's totally like the cryptography exists now. That's not the question anymore. The question is it actually scalable? Are the security assumptions solid? Are the implementations well audited and reviewed? And how would we make an upgrade mechanism?
Like how long, like longevity is security, right? Is, the Lindy effect is how long has this existed without being broken before we decide this is safe cryptography with
Yeah.
what is a new set of assumptions.
Here again, like over the last 5 years or so, we have so many new security proofs and like mathematical audits of the crypto schemes that I have a decently high expectation that they're good. I mean, I'm certainly no expert on this, but it's not like 10 years ago, right? Where we had trusted setups and shady ceremonies and so on. That's gone, right? We have publicly auditable, transparent, zero knowledge cryptography now, that we have security guarantees that they work. Now, sure, maybe those security proofs are wrong and there's somehow a bug in them. That has happened before, for sure. Also, the amount of people working on this now is wild.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, that's thanks to Ethereum and a bunch of other projects that really went deep in the ZK research and are doing a lot of cool things. And so, one of the things that I'm not so happy with the CAT proposals and the whatever is that they might take away the flexibility needed to deploy such a system. Like specifically, BitVM will not work anymore in one of these proposals. I'm not sure if that applies to BitVM 3 because there was another fantastic improvement to that stack just last year, and I think another paper earlier this year. But so if like we right now have the theoretical path on getting a trustless two-way peg into a sidechain that is a shielded CSV pool, like we don't need to make any changes to Bitcoin with that or for that in order for that to happen. It's just a bunch of engineering and protocol design and deployment and hard, but doable. And so taking away the op return, for example, I'm not sure if it's op return or one of these things in the BIP would make that no longer possible. And that would be a shame.
You're talking about BIP 110?
I think, yeah.
The soft fork that is intending to deal with spam is what you're referring to?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I mean, there's probably 10 different variants.
Sure.
As well.
Yeah.
So that's definitely something to consider. And like, there's good reasons for why Bitcoin Core is doing the things that it does, right? Like a lot of this work, especially on the mempool and relay policy and stuff, was made specifically to make Lightning better. And Lightning is a very difficult protocol, and we've gotten much better at it now than in the past. Like so many of the attack vectors in Lightning or the privacy trade-offs in Lightning are now fixed, at least in theory, and many of them deployed as well. So that just took a lot of work, and we have to be careful to not throw the baby out with the bathwater and make a change that presumably would fix the spam problem, but then also take away a massive shot at scalability that we have. So it's really tough, and I'm not really sure what's the right way to get out of this mess, other than it will probably have to take a lot of pain until many people care, and then can roll out a quite drastic change to Bitcoin, which I think is doable. Like we've been conservative in the upgrade policy of Bitcoin, and to some extent, I don't think we need to. Like you see what Monero and Ethereum, for example, or even Zcash, they've made fantastically large changes to their consensus protocol, and they're still here, right? So it's possible to make massive changes to a running blockchain system. Bitcoin chose not to do that in the past for good reasons. But if we could come up with a new protocol, a new way of doing it that is substantially better on all of the fronts, and considering latest cryptography, I think we can get there, then a much more radical proposed solution might actually be the beneficial one. Not one that just says, no, you cannot put arbitrary data anymore here because Madick butts.
Madick butts.
But instead, we have this way that scales to billions of people anonymously and also decreases verification costs for everyone. That would be something that we could get more community consensus behind than just blocking op returns.
And maybe you don't know the explicit implementation details here, but would this be something that could, especially if it's like a client side validation, would it be something where you like reorganize the way the blockchain works, but that it could actually be backwards compatible. And it just simply meant that after validating or having the data, like, how breaking of it, like, is this an absolute no questions asked hard fork in your thinking?
No, I think you could get to something like this with a soft fork. It would probably just be a bit more ugly.
Mm-hmm.
Um, like SegWit. Like SegWit is a mess of a soft fork. It would have been
Yeah.
way more elegant in a hard fork. And again, we can do hard forks. Like Monero is doing hard forks all the time. Like Bitcoin could do a hard fork. Now, there's reasons why we don't, but if we have a very compelling solution that does require a hard fork, but therefore is clean and properly thought through, then it's just a question of a careful rollout. But even soft forks are not secure if the majority of hash power is not using it, right? Like there can be all types of nasty attacks, especially in the activation period, that would make it very insecure. So, and soft forks can be malicious, and you can change the 21 million cap in a soft fork.
Mm-hmm.
You can confiscate coins in a soft fork. So soft fork doesn't necessarily mean it's good, and hard fork doesn't necessarily mean it's bad. The main reason why we chose to use soft forks in the past, I think, is because it's easier to roll out. There is less likelihood of the system behaving badly if we consider that a majority, but not everyone has upgraded.
Mm-hmm.
So, but with a long enough rollout timeline of a year or two, people will be upgrade.
Yeah, I think it's about like, at least in because I tend to be much more conservative in how I think about like what changes we make or how we make those changes, because you want to do everything possible to make sure that somebody who has coins and somebody who is running wallet or a node or whatever it is does not wake up one morning and they're gone, or they have to install some new piece of software to see the chain, or to, because that's immediately an attack vector. Somebody's going to make sure that Google search results hits theirs instead of, some other thing, like this. I'm also just like philosophically not against a hard fork. If it's something that's, extremely valuable, like something that would just like literally solve some major problems with a trade-off that just is like perfectly reasonable, or measurable. Um, and, but I also I would be like, this needs to be to the point of like nobody right now, I think, is using like a 10 or 11-year-old client, like on the network. And it would be like, okay, like we can see on the network that nobody is using one that is this old. This is our timeline, like 11-year clients. This is an 11-year hard fork. We're going to go ahead and implement and have it ready, and it will not activate until 2037, something like that. Yeah, philosophically, it's like, it's a software upgrade. It's just insanely difficult and insanely dangerous for a consensus network. But it also gives us plenty of time to be
Yeah.
like, oh, we made a mistake. Oh, we tested this, and oh, there's a bug. And when you're doing a irreversible alteration, like, the more time, the better. I think it's totally fine for Bitcoin to move slowly and carefully. So that's interesting, though. That's interesting. I honestly, the zero knowledge proofs have not been at the forefront. I've been so focused on, no, there's just not enough time to dig into every damn thing. But I do hear it mentioned quite a bit with various people who are building things. And again, just like seeing eCash come back, seeing and blind signatures become like more ubiquitous of a thing. The final rollout now of state chains and of ARC and like a lot of this stuff, like it's crazy how fast it's moving, but it feels like it's like the world isn't aware, and we also nothing happened this, when it comes to like the price or whatever, like this previous like hype cycle has felt like nothing even occurred. It was just kind of like, oh, there were ETFs, and who really gives a shit about that? Like, okay, there's like new liquidity and like some legitimization of like traditional finance, and Bitcoin has happened. But like, we've built so much stuff. We've built so much stuff and so many new tools and so many new protocols, but like none of those have like blossomed yet. They're all still
Yeah.
like right on the
And,
cusp
and,
of
and
something.
like kind of in theory, but we've scaled to billions now. Especially if you consider with custodians like eCash,
Mhm.
like 100 billion, like everyone and their million AI agents can today use Bitcoin.
Mhm.
Like, and that's not a joke. Okay, we would have some rollout pain, but there's no fundamental blocker to that. And then with, of course, Lightning, with state chains, now with Arc, basically Lightning channel factories, there's substantial improvements on how to move Bitcoin without custody uh, already now. And then, as I said, right, with BitVM, we can have trustless bridges and then have some crazy zero knowledge blockchain system. Um, and that brings us actual scalability of transactions as well. These are all not like high in the sky anymore. Like these are all pretty reasonably achievable engineering problems that just need some time and thinking power. Which again, now we have agents, so all of our devs got 10 times more efficient, and probably also 100 times more expressive, that they can actually articulate what they mean, and hopefully, presumably, that will lead to greater common shared understanding of things. Because a lot of devs are just autists that cannot really talk well or communicate in a proactive, productive way. And this type of translation is maybe also going to be effective. So I'm insanely bullish on humanity getting smarter and becoming more advanced with these technologies. It's just a question of engineering time, and we just do that.
So I know I've said this like 5 times, but just like what a wild time to be alive. Especially with like all this Epstein stuff dropping. Like I think this is kind of like an example of the breakdown of all of our old trust models and how we associate. This is the end game of completely changing all of our networks, of all of our communities, our associations, like into an online world. And the fact that at the exact same time that kind of the political consequences are coming to a head, and there's an enormous amount of like political chaos and not only disruption but uncertainty in kind of the global power landscape, at the exact same time that the internet is coming to fruition with its breakdown of establishment structures. We're undermining the thing that's already being undermined with Nostr and Bitcoin. Like this is not Bitcoin's disruption, right? This is just like the continuation and extension of the internet's disruption of old systems and the inability to hide something terrible from people because of the way information moves. And we are already moving like an order of magnitude forward. It's like, oh, well, we're also going to have a social media that can't be censored, where you can't shadow ban this post because it's talking about the wrong person, where you can directly monetize anything and everything that you want, where you can freely associate with anybody, where you can also exchange this peer-to-peer, which you have encrypted group messaging that is decentralized and peer-to-peer, that is not dependent on a company, that could be attacked or backdoored with the next update, et cetera, et cetera. And like it all feels like it's coming to a head, and at the exact same time it feels like it's all beginning.
Mm. Yeah.
Um,
Yeah, changes in the air, and we have technologies now that we never had before, including on that front of actually checking what the politicians are doing.
Yeah.
Like WikiLeaks is a godsend for that, right? They pioneered this, and they're cypherpunk as fuck, right? Like WikiLeaks is the core part of the cypherpunk movement of like, we will protect ourselves from being spied on by the slave masters, and we will spy on the slave masters and get all their dirty secrets and publish them so that the whole world will see.
Mhm.
And the strategy works. It works surprisingly well on both fronts, because the truth wants to be free ultimately, and then you as an individual are like, you have a much more favorable trade-off of actually keeping yourself private. Just because if you're a good person, you don't piss anyone off too much, and then nobody spends those resources to try to spy on you. But obviously, the politicians who piss off all the people because they steal so much, they will be under immense scrutiny, not only by people in their constituency and country, but globally. And there is this decentralized journalism opportunity where anyone can do this research, and then anyone can publish their findings and collaborate with those who talked about the research. And we just need more of that. And again, that's why white noise environment is so important, because for any of these important things, we need to coordinate with each other. We need to communicate, and we need to be able to safeguard the release of information to a certain point. And we need that not only for chats, we need that for so many different things. And that's where I'm so bullish again on Marmot as a protocol, because it's one of those foundational building blocks, secure communication of a group of people, that is required to take this to the next level. Because like we can solve all of these crazy things like Bitcoin scalability and so on, if we have builders that can securely communicate about the solutions. Then it's just a question of time. We'd never really had the secure building infrastructure that was needed. And so that means that we have the problem of not being able to actually deploy these solutions at scale. Because all the infrastructure of all the freedom tech people is going to be compromised. Like if you have a Google account and you're a freedom tech lover, bad news, but it's been compromised. They have it subpoenaed, and Google doesn't even have to tell you about that.
Yeah.
Not for years after, right? So, and that's only in the official part of their surveillance machine. They have a 100x larger black budget where they don't even have to care about all of this stuff, and that it is a massive problem, and you are being attacked, and even as a rather boring person, you're being attacked. And the good thing is you can actually put an end to it. Like the cypherpunks have a fantastic strategy of shining light on the evil deeds of the politicians, spreading the word about this so that everyone knows about it, building the solutions so that they can no longer steal from you and spy on you, and then distributing those solutions to all the people who are pissed off enough to put an end to it. And we can ship it to 8 billion people with the click of a button. It's a technological, informational deployment to this problem. And I think we're very close before reaching a tipping point where, given that the technology is available, we will see an insane amount of societal change. I really think that like culture and society comes downstream of technology. We are different people when we have different tools. And if all the tools that we have are designed by slave masters and designed to exploit as much from people as possible, then obviously the resulting society will be abysmal and just embarrassing. But if we have technologies that do protect individuals, that value property rights, value privacy, and have sane, secure defaults for everyone by default, then the resulting society is so extremely difficult. And thankfully, we don't have to change the genetics of humans, because that would take forever. We just need to change the technology. And that's an update to your app. Right? That is all of a sudden something that we can make meaningful, long-lasting, actual tangible improvements to our situation tomorrow.
So you think that, a lot of people I think are pretty pessimistic. Like, and I go back and forth. There's a lot of like short-term pessimism and like where the EU is going and how like attacks are happening and stuff. And also where the US is going from a political standpoint. And like, I don't know of anything that hasn't really just gotten worse over the period of my lifetime, from like how much the government's spending, how much they're invading privacy and like all of this stuff. But, this discussion has largely been a very optimistic one. And at the same time that everybody is like, even AI, like I have like fantastic uses of AI. Like I said, I'm addicted to vibe coding, but it's also like a pretty big surveillance nightmare right now. And in a lot of the platforms and things that we're on, I feel like we're on a runaway train toward all of these things getting worse when applied to the average person. But then at the exact same time, we're building so many solutions in this little corner where things are getting aggressively better when it comes to the tools and the stuff we have at our disposal. But what's your timeline for your optimism? Like how quick do you think some of this actually turns around? And and is it it keeps getting worse, uh, faster and faster and worse until something breaks and then it's like a dam, you know? Or is it a slow buildup of kind of like two parallel universes eh, that, you know, in 20 years, 30 years, we still just have this whole world of sheep living in sheepland, and we have a world of kind of Bitcoin, like, you know, they just diverge and they're fundamentally incompatible, and they just kind of like, we kind of like quietly live in these two little worlds. Like you have your mask world and then your world where you can actually go be yourself. Like, what do you imagine the future to be? And how do you imagine we get there?
I had an interesting kind of change in character there because, you know, I started out as an economist and really went deep down the Austrian rabbit hole, and then got incredibly depressed by realizing of how much destruction of capital is actually happening in modern society. Like
Yeah.
it's, if you really deeply meditate on that, it's soul shattering. Like I can't fully even try to realize that because it would hurt too much. It's really fucking bad. And that Austrian economics alone did not give me enough hope to fight that massive realization of that depression. And that's where the cypherpunks come in to a larger extent of, yes, this is a problem, but look, we have cryptography. This is magic. And and distributed systems, strong encryption, all of these things, where no, we have the technology to make a meaningful change in that intervention and theft.
Mhm.
Like strong encryption holds. It holds even against the NSA. It holds against the most incredibly, yeah, capitalized government or private agency. They cannot brute force decrypt your database without the password. Like that's a fact. And then the punk part of cypherpunks of, you can't just do things. Like the mental model you gave of, this is a dam breaking, like, you know, the herd of sheeple. I think it's much more fruitful to look at this on the individual scale. If you want to protect yourself from all of these types of shenanigans, you can take meaningful, manageable, small steps today and improve your level of freedom, decrease the level of harassment, and increase the time in between you get stolen from to incredible high amounts. So the dam doesn't have to break for the world. The dam has to break in your head. When you pledge to no longer serve, you are at once free. Something like this is from Boitel, or some French writer from the 1700s, who was worrying exactly about this of like, why are so many people partaking in their own suffering and slavery and prolonging it much more than it would absolutely that it would be necessary. And oh, I don't know the answer to that. Humans are weird. But what I do know is that you can just stop hurting yourself. And that requires the realization that you are in the first place hurting yourself. And that's what is lacking, I imagine. But thankfully here, as the government increases the pressure and the trickery and the thievery, that pain will become so large that you won't be able to unnotice it. And ultimately, the socialist system will fail for very obvious economic reasons. Like their systems of control and manipulation will misallocate capital on such a gigantic level that they're simply not able to solve even the most basic problem anymore.
Yeah.
And we've seen that for the last 30 years. We're especially seeing it in the last 10 years. And that will continue to be the case, where the actual perceived and real cost of the misallocation that is happening is so astounding that it will get worse for all of the people who continue participating in the system. But on the flip side, the cypherpunks have built the technologies that decrease the cost of exit to almost nothing. Like, all you need to do to end the Fed is to sell your fiat, right? And stack some gold, stack some Bitcoin, and your inflation is gone for you, right? Like, price your contracts in Bitcoin, and inflation is gone. No, they use Bitcoin privately, and most of the theft is gone. And these are real, easy, doable things. It's literally downloading an app, right? Anyone can do that. And sure, it could be prettier and more scalable and whatnot. We can improve it in a million ways. But ultimately, it's a technological problem or a technological solution to a societal problem.
Mhm.
And I very strongly believe that we have the tech available. Already now, it works wonders. I see a million ways of how it can be easily improved in the future. And so that is what makes me so optimistic. Like, realistic of how bad the situation is. Like, it's unspeakably bad. But maybe because it is so bad, we have an even more awe-inspiring solution of just stop hurting yourself. And within the shortest period of time, we would have a rebound. Like, just imagine if tomorrow everyone would stop stealing from each other, and where we would be in a year, in 2 years, in 5 years. The things that we could achieve are so unspeakable. And that is, again, so painful because you see what we've lost in the last 100 years of misery and suffering and war and slavery. But it also shows you that we can improve the situation for everyone so massively in a very short amount of time if we have that aspect, again, realized and deployed to people.
Next few years are going to be crazy.
Yeah.
It's like,
Exponentially more so.
yeah. I mean, this year just got started and it's crazy.
We're just getting started.
Man, it's been an insane year all week, man. And it reminds me, the way you framed it there reminds me of I read Thomas Paine's Common Sense on the show. And then there's Parker Lewis did the piece on it that made me go back and read it. And I cannot believe how eloquently he kind of like framed how it was, and it was such a personal kind of story too. Is that, like, the nation is like a person who continues to procrastinate about something that we know has to happen and we know have to do. We have to do, but it's not painful enough yet to break down and just do it. But it's common sense. We know that we have to get here and it's going to have to happen, but we're just putting it off. We'll just do it tomorrow. We'll just do it tomorrow. And that essentially the pain, the friction, the presence of the problem has to become so clear and in our way that it leaves us no option, that we cannot procrastinate it another day. And we are getting there. We are
Yes.
fucking getting there.
Again, like I'm not so optimistic about you. I think that it will keep going wrong in the same direction on a macro level for a long time.
On the individual level, there's the ability to exit. I think that's kind of the key.
And that's the crucial part. And you can just stop, and you can help your friends and family to stop. And sure, that's hard, right? We've all tried orange pilling our friends and suck at it. But there's ways that you can get better about that. And then it's like once you're on the other side of making that switch, it's so obvious and so easy, like so effortless, that I know it's doable. I know it's not expensive. I actually know it's profitable, very, very profitable to do. So it will happen. Like, the economic incentives are clear. More and more people will realize that. And we don't need 100%. And one of the amazing pieces you read was about the remnant. That is so true.
Yeah.
We don't need everyone. I mean, it would be great if eventually everyone would stop stealing, but if 3% of the people would stop stealing consistently and stop engaging with anyone who steals, that would change the world in an incredibly short amount of time.
Mhm.
So you can be part of that and just be actually consistent on it. That's the difficult part. I think that's the insane trick that was pulled on all of us with fiat money, is that we're all tricked into stealing from each other. It's so easy to say, oh, the banks and the governments, they're printing money and stealing from me. Yeah, that's true. But behind you in that chain of Cantillon effects, inflation, are millions of people not even born yet.
Mhm.
And you're actively stealing from them.
Yeah.
And that's just bad. That's wrong. That's stupid. And you don't have to do it. And it's not good for you. So you can just stop and perceive a real tangible improvement in your life tomorrow. And there's many different ways that we're currently doing that, of just bowing down to people who have no right to lord over us. And so one by one, remove them from the equation, and life will be very different for you, for your family, and for your friends. Even those who are still stuck in that first realm and in that old mindset, they will still benefit by the fact that you're more productive, more lively, and that lifts them up, even if they're still stuck in this old system. And after they then perceive enough pain from the old system and see that you're thriving on the new system, I mean, to many it will, release a lot of envy and jealousy, and that's a dangerous position to be in as well.
Mhm.
But then on the other hand, many will realize that they can achieve the same quite easily. It's not rocket science. It really isn't.
It's a good place to stop, I think. Dude, thank you as always. It's good to hang out, man. It's been a while. Been a while. I feel like, yeah, I hadn't seen you at conferences or anything. Of course, I've been like half not going to them lately. I've been trying to travel as little as possible. Are you going in any this year?
Yeah, I have a couple planned yet. They're all kind of happening spontaneous.
Okay.
I always keep all of the conferences in the calendar, and then
Just
the week before
randomly, just
decide
be
if I
like,
can make
let's
it.
go. Let's go. Let's go to Bitlock Boom, man. Let's do it. All right.
Yeah,
Hell yeah. Hell yeah.
that's one that I'm still missing.
Well, don't forget to hit me up if you go. I want to hang out, get a drink, and and bullshit for 3 hours in person next time we're in the same place, all right?
Yeah, that would be good,
Dude.
and I'm really happy with what you're building with Pair Drive. Like, it's such an obvious problem that needs solving, and I love how you've ranted on the show for years on how this problem has to be solved. And like, eventually you give up and it's like, okay, I couldn't convince anyone of my audience to fix it, so damn it, I'll have to fix it. And I think that's the right mindset. That's how
Dude, I was talking
just fix your problems.
Carlos from Simple Proof. And I was like, like at this point, I'm so invested in this stupid thing. And we've rebuilt it. We're on like the 5th rebuild. And because we keep running into some problem where I'm like, I can't create the user experience that I want. And I'm like, no, we got to go back and figure this shit out. And but I was talking to Carlos, and I was like, when I got into Bitcoin, I immediately lost all my money, right? I got in at like the hype of the hype in 2011, and then it just plummeted. And I'd lost so much money in it that, I cried and I threw up, and I was like, okay, like I'm not going to sell out because I've got like $70 left, like I'm not going to sell out of this on the same ignorance that I got into it on. And so I decided that I was going to, before I made any decision, I'm just going to stay in my bullshit. I lost all my money position, in my magic internet money investment. And I was going to find out, I was going to be able to explain better than anyone else why it was a dumb decision and why Bitcoin wasn't going to work. And so like I started reading everything I could get my hands on, right? And eventually I just came to the conclusion that it was going to work because I felt like the The best of the best arguments against it, I still felt were missing some major pieces. And so after years of doing this and Bitcoin slowly like coming back to life, I was like, I still think this is going to work. And so I've kind of applied the same logic in a sense to PairDrive, is that I am so convinced that we have all of the tools and that this can work, that I am not going to stop until I'm either dead fucking broke, or I am absolutely 100% certain that it cannot actually be built. Otherwise, I'm just going to keep going. Even if I can't afford anybody else to do it, I'll just vibe code for 3 hours every night and see what I can put together. And if I can Lego block, modularize, whatever the hell I want. But it's got to be possible. It has got to be possible. There's no way that you can't user-friendly peer-to-peer this thing, you know?
Yeah.
So we'll see. I'm 100,000% going to look closer at white noise again and the Marmot protocol, because that hadn't really been top of mind of like how to deal with messaging and stuff on it. But since we already have Moster and everything plugged into this might actually be really easy to apply with what we're doing.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I think so. We should chat properly about like how exactly you want to use it or what exactly you need.
Mm-hmm.
But ultimately, if you want to be able to send a message or a file between a couple people encrypted so that it's actually long-term encrypted, and rotating keys, etc. And you're already doing that with Nostr events, then Marmot is, I think, a no-brainer for you. Now it doesn't solve everything,
Sure.
right? Like one other thing that I absolutely want to have is I remember 12 words in my head and I get all of my important files back.
Yeah.
Right? That use cases I also absolutely want to have.
Yeah.
And Marmot is not the right thing for that.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Marmot would be how do I get all of my data over there with a secure transport layer?
Mm-hmm.
And then how you figure out your backup long-term solution, that's a different protocol. But for getting that handshake, and especially for I want to send the same file to 100 different peers, that might be really interesting.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. We should get something on the books. We should actually like sit down and do kind of a building or brainstorming sesh, because and actually got a message just a couple of minutes ago of like we're demoing some changes that have recently made. So exciting! There's a little bit of movement right now, but because I think we're momentum is back in after Iran's internet shutdown. I think we'll finish the build as it is, and then kind of go back and look at that sort of thing, because I think we have like a simple tool that does the job. And I think once we have that kind of foundation, we can go back and be like, okay, how do we make this a little bit better? How do we improve the privacy of this a little bit? How do we tweak this little thing without changing the API or the RPC commands?
Have you like released anything yet, or is it
We
still
have Hope.
intern?
I worked with a developer for a long time, and we have a kind of a proof of concept. It's still missing a couple of like really important primitives, but it does the job. It does the job to the point that I just delivered 1,500 transcriptions of my podcast from my Linux machine to my Mac, so that so my bot could go through it and make a lot of assessments and stuff. It's the easy way to move an enormous amount of files from one computer to another. When my brother is traveling or whatever, he's like, man, I want to watch The Matrix and my wife has never seen it. Can you send me a link? And I'll just send him a PairDrive key and he's just like, thanks. And he's watching. We have it. We know we can do the core of what PairDrive needs to do. But like I said, it's missing a couple of primitives. It's missing like a good backup system and the key attestation system that I really, really want, to really kind of like make that user experience kind of like, oh, this is just easy. So that's why we're rebuilding again. But because we found out we kind of have to put it at the bottom. We can't bolt it on top like I kind of thought we might be able to. So you can just go to the PairDrive GitHub repo, and there's a CLI tool and there's the core. Still rough around the edges, still has some bugs or whatever, but you can use it. I use it every single day. It's open right now, actually. So
one of my favorite kind of mantras is that we deliver shippable intermediaries. I think there's a lot of power in that statement.
that's a really cool statement. Yeah.
You have to deliver.
Mhm.
Right? If you're not delivering, then what are you doing? And they don't have to be perfect. You just have to be shippable.
Yeah.
You can be totally embarrassed about your first release. In fact, if you're not embarrassed about your first release, you released way too late.
waited. You waited too long.
Just has to be
Yeah.
shippable.
Yeah.
And it's fine if it's only shippable as long as it's an intermediary. Just keep grinding on it.
Mhm.
Keep getting feedback, keep making improvements. And eventually those will all be dug out. But it's so easy to get stuck in this kind of perfectionist loop. And I think you're totally in perfectionist hell right now. I'm sure you could have released it like a year ago.
Probably.
And it would have been fine.
It drives me crazy. I wanted to be right. Man.
Yeah, I get you, but it cannot be right without deploying
I
it
know.
properly and without getting feedback from
I
users.
know.
and stuff.
That's why it's out there. Even though I know like this version is a proof of concept, but I was like, all right, somebody's gonna, at least they can look at it and like kind of get a sense of like where we're going and stuff. And it makes me feel less like an idiot for still just beating my face against this thing without anything out there. I can at least point them to the current repo. And I can just say, oh, we have a new version that solves a ton of the problems and, adds a couple of really important primitives. And then I can show an app on top of it. And I think that's really, it's not going to move to any substantial degree until I show the kind of experience that I want to be able to do with an app. And I think it's going to be fun, and it's going to be something that you've just never been able to do with files. So, we'll see. But
no, it's really good. But I feel because we're in also like the 5th iteration of white noise and the front end app.
Nice.
And it's just pain, to have to throw everything out literally 4 or 5 times.
Oh God, I know.
And
it's so
we're just
bad.
now trying to
so
get
bad.
feature parity of the old version. But it's like, it's so much better than before. It's so much more pretty. It'll work so much faster, more efficient. It's gonna be great. But I keep telling people that for like the last year. And it's kind of embarrassing. But it will be worth it. Like it just takes time to do properly engineered codes. Like that's just hard.
Mhm.
And sure, we can get more efficient and use all of our byte coded agents to make the progress better, and we'll get there. But it's just hard.
Yeah.
Like that's so many things worth working on are just really hard.
It's kind of axiomatic though, isn't it? If it's worth working on, it's because it's hard. Like as soon as it's easy to do, it's not really a worthwhile problem because once it's too easy to solve, it's already been solved in 100 different ways,
Yeah.
But you're 100% right though, and I feel you.
Yeah.
Very, very much so. Dude, thank you. It's always good hanging out. We'll close the episode again. This is what we're the last Lord of the Rings, right? We're gonna end the episode 5 times.
This was one of my favorite podcasts I was on so far was with the Honigdachs. It's an amazing OG German speaking podcast.
Yeah.
They're doing it like nonstop since 2012 or something ridiculous.
Shit. Oh geez.
And they what I love most about them is their intro and outro music. It's just like beautiful piano jazz with someone pouring you a cognac or something, fire crackling in the background. It's just cozy. And so we had this conversation, and naturally, like throughout the conversations, 5 times the closing ceremony came up, but we kept talking again and again. And so what they did in post, which was amazing, was to add the outro music, as we were going. And then
stop it.
DJ skip as we went into the next rabbit hole for like 5 times. So
love it.
Yeah, those were the best.
That's amazing.
Those were the best parts.
That's amazing. Well, hit me up. We'll get something on the schedule because I do actually want to talk about this. It'd probably be, I say probably good timing is like 3 months. 3 weeks to a month or something like that. Depending on where progress is. But I'd love to sit down and go over white noise, for just to start, and then And then maybe we can kind of like walk through Peer Drive and, what I want to do with it and how the new build is working or whatever. I'd love to get your feedback and tell me where like this thing's stupid. That's a terrible decision. Let me let me know because that's the only way I'm going to make it better is when people
Yeah.
smarter or have built enough things tell me what I did wrong. So
Yeah, that's always super helpful. Like an hour conversation with the right person can save you a year of work.
oh god, dude, I fucking oh my god.
It's,
Dude, the number of times where like we were beating our faces against something for like 4 weeks, and then I was just like, Matthias, man, what should I be doing here? And he's like, oh, blah 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 blah, and I'm like, oh my god, you gotta be kidding me.
yes, exactly. No, but like that's it's true, and I think that's ultimately again why we're winning. If like we have people to talk to, that's the cool thing about the free software space.
Mhm.
There is so much talent here and so much enthusiasm and motivation to build awesome stuff that yeah, we can't but win.
Yeah.
Like we just have way too much fun, cool, awesome tools that we can deploy at scale, like right now, and there's a million ways that we can make them better. And now even non-developers can just make them better by themselves. Is a crazy
Hi.
timeline. So
Well, sweet.
yeah, I'm really bullish on this.
Yeah, man.
It'll be all good.
That's a trip. Exciting freaking times. Nobody can say we didn't live through nobody can say we lived through a boring time. Right?
Yeah.
Certainly can't say that shit.
Yeah.
All right. Anything to share out, people to tell you where to find you, what to check out and all that stuff?
Yeah, go check out Marmot Protocol.
Mhm.
It's really cool. We have now libraries in Rust and TypeScript with language bindings to like Python and C and whatnot. So
nice. Okay.
bunch of good ways of using that. By like the end of the month, like February 26th, the developers will tell me that the 7th iteration of the matrix will be very efficient. So that will be rolled out by then. Let's see. They promise good things. And then just try it out. Like, I mean, try out white noise, especially the new UI we're building. It's going to be really sexy. So it will be a good looking chat
Good
app.
word, sexy.
And the best thing is that you'll be able to add the same functionality into your own app and talk to all the white noise users. Amethyst, Trimo,
That's
Danos,
awesome.
all of the cool clients are actively, or not actively working, but they're considering how they'll do it, and they're basically just waiting on us to give them the green light of start building is ready.
Hell yeah.
We're really close to that. So this year we will have encrypted Nostr messages totally figured out, and it'll scale to thousands of people in your group, and you can have thousands of groups in parallel, and it will be amazing for chatbots. This is like one of the things I'm so bullish on is to make a bunch of Marbots, so Marmot bots. They will be so good because they will be first class citizen, right? Dude, the way that OpenClaw works right now is so ridiculous. You literally have to give it access to every single chat message
Telegram
that you were ever
like,
part of.
Oh my god, it's so wild.
Like,
it's so ridiculous.
Even if something encrypted like Signal or WhatsApp, they see every group.
Yeah.
You are sending all of your chat history to an AI service provider for GPU inference. It's fucking wild.
Yeah.
So, and the only reason why that is because you can't have a second Signal account because it's tied to your stupid phone number.
Yeah.
So that's just totally gone. That's an obsolete problem.
Mhm.
And that makes me super bullish. And yeah, it would be good. So yeah, check out my website, towardsliberty.com. Recently I updated it and I vibe coded it. So now it has all of my Nostr events, like all of my shit posts and my 100 or so
No kidding.
blog posts.
Towards Liberty.
You know, when I did that, I mean, I got like queried all of the relays to get my events. And it turned out that all my insightful knowledge on Nostr for like 4 years or something are 16 megabytes.
Wow.
That,
nothing.
made me feel humble.
Nothing.
Like,
that's crazy.
That's nothing.
Yeah.
You're just a small blip in the universe with 16 megabytes of insightful data. And on that website, you'll also find my book, which is out in version 0.2 for, hopefully getting some feedback. Like what I'm trying to do with that one is to bridge the cypherpunk tradition and the praxeology Austrian economics tradition,
Mm-hmm.
because I think both of them are just talking past each other, and there's so much synergy to be had from both frames of mind. So if you're not yet a hardcore Rothbardian MCAP, then this might be a good intro for you. And if you are already, but you have no idea how cryptography works or what we can build with that, it will also be good for you. So yeah, that's kind of the culmination of the last 10 years or so of me thinking about these problems on both angles, hoping to build a bridge in between that. So yeah, give me a review now, and I'll still make some changes and the third version before it goes into print, probably in the middle of the year or something.
Oh yeah.
So yeah, now is a good time for that feedback.
Sweet. All right, man. I'll link to all that.
Oh yeah,
stuff
the book is
towards-
called The Praxeology of Privacy.
I was about to say, I was just looking
That's
at the praxeology of privacy. I like that. I didn't realize you have so many. You write articles like every freaking day at this rate or whatever. I only see like one or two come across my feed. You got 16th, 17th, 19th, 19th, 20th. The hell are you writing so much for? 21st? That's awesome.
That's one of the things of like sometimes I'm bored,
Mm-hmm.
and then sometimes I just let go of myself and be actually bored for a while. But oftentimes I'm like, you're not allowed to be bored. Like, we have the world to fix. You better do something productive.
You have so much to
often ends
do.
up with me writing an article.
Get to work, man. I tried to sit down and like watch. I'm here by myself because my family, it's snowed in back at her in-laws. And so I'm like kind of like, it's weird not having like kids running around and everybody yelling and stuff. And I like sat down and tried to like watch something last night, and it was like 3 minutes, and I was just like, man, I just want vibe code. And I vibe coded until like 1 o'clock in the morning. I was like, this is way more fun. I don't even care about these shows anymore.
Yeah, exactly.
No.
But it's really cool that it as you said, man, that was so good. It makes how do you say, addiction profitable? No, that wasn't it. But something like that. You had a banger line. I have to re-listen.
It addicts me to production. It's
Yeah, exactly. That was it.
It gamifies productivity for me.
Yeah,
Like, and
that's a really good insight.
yeah.
And yeah, game changer, dude. Yeah.
All right, man.
Bullish.
Bullish.
Let's keep building.
Bullish as hell. All right, dude. Thank you so much. I'll catch up with you. Shoot me any links like the Anarplex stuff or whatever that you have. I'll have it all in the show notes for everybody.
Yeah.
And
oh yeah, definitely read the second round, man. If you haven't read it yet, it's a must.
Oh, it's Jarvis has already got it on my don't forget to remind me. I typed it in there immediately. I was like, oh, a fiction book. I'm like, no, yeah, 100,000% I will read the shit out of that.
Nice.
Hell yeah. Thanks, dude.
Cool.
Thanks for coming on.
Yeah, this was fun, guys.
Yeah.
Looking forward to the next one.
Okay. Maybe it's working this time. Okay. So a bunch of stuff to check out. I have a whole bunch of different links he sent me. So we've got Anarplex. That's ANARplex.Sirion, SIRION.io. Obviously, the link will be right down in the show notes. This has got the Second Realm book, which I'm pretty stoked about. And then he also pointed me to, and this may have been after the show, the True Names story, which is a great kind of like little cypherpunk history. It's an OG piece on that. And now that I think about it, I can't remember if it was just our Gigi's piece that we read about it, or if I actually read True Names on the show. Because I was thinking while I was talking to him that I had not read it, but I'm now 90% sure I have, but it's been so long that I may have forgotten a lot of it. Whatever, it's a good thing to refresh, and I'll have the link in the show notes. As well as for the Marmot protocol, if you're building, especially if you're vibe coding or you're trying to build stuff on Nostr, anything like that, this is super critical. And I love the idea of the decentralized encrypted private messaging and like what we can actually pull off with this that doesn't rely on centralized servers to keep working. And We can have any client, any tool, maybe even PairDrive. We're definitely going to look into it, that can communicate with this and use this open standard. The Second Realm book. And then also I've got the book Sedition, Subversion, and Sabotage, a 3-part solution to the state, and thinking about how to build and secure your own freedom, and thinking about your life as an adversarial environment and building it for resiliency. And we have so many tools to actually do this. That's definitely something we'll be digging into. Link to that as well. Anything else that he brought up, I will try to make sure that I have the link in the show notes. If I missed something, please reach out. I will try to get it up as quick as possible. Any questions you have, feel free to hit me up. Don't forget about bitcoinaudible.com. There's so many great resources up there. We've got the entire catalog of episodes now, and that should do us. Follow Max, subscribe to this show, and share it out with everybody that you know. And I will catch you on the next episode of Bitcoin Audible. I am Guy Swan, and until then, guys, that's my 2 cents.